with regret. Like I said, it's a long-awaited season 2. The invasion storyline as we know it. A lot of time was spent in the middle of it all, in the beginning and the end. Without much care and craftsmanship was put into the invasion and to the motivations of the Teal, the Alliance, what have you. And you know what? We're going to wrap this up in the next minute or so. And damn, we're going to open the pipe of it this year. It shows the history of the company, how it's evolved, and the landscape changed over time. We get the music, the shots of the legends, and the old gym, the sound bites, and the current build. We really came to see 1,142 people in the Greensboro Coliseum. And to give you an idea of how much the business has died after the money war and WWE bought out. The last time they had a pay-per-view in the building was King of the Ring 99, and that was a near sellout of 1,000 people. So it's clear that the interest has moved a bit down, especially everywhere else. Championship against pay-per-view. Not seen him practically all year because we are at the end of time with MTV filming for Tucker on MTV. The first season was just wrapped up. Maven and Lydia won that, and they started doing the audition process for season 2 happening around this time. So Al's back here. He has a confrontation with Christian on feet, and that's what brings about this match. Christian with the advantage in the early going, putting the boots to Snow. Al works his way up in the chinlock position minutes later. Tries to open the trap headbutt, but Christian back on top. Snow comes back, then with the headbutts out. Really has Christian on the ropes here. He almost has him beat a couple of times. With the top rope crossbody, but Christian rolls through it, almost wins. Al with the Snow plow, Christian getting his foot on the rope. There's a bit of a chase around the ring. Christian gets back in first, kicks Snow coming through the ropes. The unprettier time to win. I give it 2.5 stars out of 5. It's a solid opener, but there's no secret thing. Like I said, this match was made before the show on Sunday Night Heat, so there's no, Al Snow's been off TV for a long time, so yeah, there's not a lot of reasons to really care about this matchup, but at least Andrew's done well. Backstage at Alliance HQ, Shane and Stephanie McMahon, along with some others, confront Stone Cold and ask him point blank that he'll be defecting to WWF at the end of the night. And Stephanie thinks what's happened is Stone Cold Sarah the smile, smiling. What the hell is that about? Tensions are riding high between everyone arguing over who the leader and the fired up Austin stands up for himself and begin lift up by the fans, and make sure everyone is on his side. Elsewhere, big news for the player happening. Jack is something that not really straight up with the about the possibility of the company going to a business tonight. Vince talked about always doing some calculating risks of how he made his money and how he made his fortune, became the kingpin of wrestling years today. He says that his 6 WWF members will defeat the 4 Alliance members, and that it's damn near a guarantee. Alliance Commissioner recently shows up and says he's not buying this back down often possibly because of that separation. He says he can't wait to see all the things that fought for those down. For the first episode of Alliance Raw tomorrow. Boy, that's got a nice ring to it, doesn't it? Alliance Raw. And hey, in an alternate timeline, you could be watching the Survivor Series show on the Alliance Network on Peacock. Up next, Rico taking on Todd Theory. The feud between these two are continuing. Politics Theory's got just all to do as Cruiserweight champion at the moment. More on that later. Last week on SmackDown, Rico put the stretch on Torres to win an intergender tag match where he and Ivory took on Tajiri and Torres. Rico absorbed a couple of kicks at the beginning and is very aggressive at the start, taking nose buster with his moment. That's a part of Stephen Regal. Tajiri slips into a hangman spot in the ring. Regal caught on his legs from the outside. Damn, this match is going hard. JR on commentary talks about how Regal was picked up from the scrap heap before he came to WWF, which is cold but also true, because if you're familiar with Regal's story, will find it being experienced while back into the company. So, fair, hard to fair. Tajiri with a few more kicks in. Goes to the buzzsaw kick. Regal's got this one. Another strike. Hits the Regal's arm for the win, but he's not done. Picks it up in the middle of the bell. He goes to leave, but then Corey Wilson shows up to check on her ring for Tajiri. So, Regal goes back into the ring. I think the Tiger Bomb first two, one basket. I think it's 3 stars on the line. Look at this painful to score match. I really think it's they had to go through early injuries or whatever. Done very well for the free title gift. We get a recap of last week on Raw. When WWF Commissioner fans said he was sick of all these championships flopping around each and every week. Finally, someone who could speak for us. They announced there would be some title unification matches at Survivor Series for the U.S. Intercontinental titles, for the WCW and WCS tag titles. There was supposed to be one for the Cruiserweight heavyweight titles, but this might explain why Superior was wrestling legal for 2 shows in a row. With the X-Pac, the light heavyweight champion, was out with an injury. So that championship was quietly forgotten about for the rest of this angle. And not for us again, until early this year. And by the way, there's something I want to mention in this storyline. It's all title change. I've been talking about it in previous reviews, but every week, at least one championship will change hands. And there's so many belts now, the influx of titles coming in from WCW. And it's so confusing. The problem will become multiple times tag champions, almost as we're never the champion of the company they were meant to represent. And it just got so confusing, so involving. And we'll talk more about one of those belts and the confusion that lies therein in just a second, because Edge, the U.S. champion, is going to take on the Intercontinental champion to unify the belt. Now, this is interesting. Wasn't Edge the Intercontinental champion in the last review we did for Rebellion? Champion, and the following week, Edge challenged Kurt Angle to the WWF champion, with X-Pac 2 match in the title, and he was back. Good God Almighty, it's getting confusing. We have some flirting between Tess and Stacy Keibler, who will become an item in real life. Tess said she wants to be the first game with her. What's really radical here? Then we see Edge interview backstage. He says he and Tess are both tall, athletic, blonde, and has good first name. He says Tess has been dubbed by nearly every woman on the planet. He says he won't take Tess' big boots, but Tess will be saying, I got beat by Edge. What's that all up to? You know what? As far as Alliance members are concerned, whether you look at the AP invaders of ECW or ECW or the suckers from the Federation, I don't think anyone from that group benefited really as much as us did. Really serious up there. He was all the guys like Booker T and Kurt Angle and Edge and those guys. He was like for the real barn burner. He was on TV with high profile on a weekly basis. I think he was one of the real winners in those storylines. The game of back and forth to start things off. Tess showing more of his power, dropping his out of the barricade outside. I know Heyman on commentary talks about the historic names of these respective titles, like the IC title. He talks about guys like Heyman and Valentine or Ric Flair. And he says, tonight, one of these lineages will die. Well, yeah, if only he knew. Edge comes back with the quickness, Tess back on top, wearing Edge down. Edge is still able to fire back. He goes for a cross body but gets none of it. Fighting on the top rope, Tess the flying nothing, but Edge hits him with a drop kick. He goes on a big run, counters a pump handle slam into an Edge-o-matic. Tess steals Edge's spear, but not enough. Edge kicks out of the pump handle. Tess kicks out of the spear. Edge with a victory roll and pins to win. I give it 4 stars out of 5. This was my favorite singles match of the evening. I think these two really had great chemistry. I've been liking Edge's work in the Invasion storyline so far, especially his matches with Christian and Kurt Angle. And I think, like I said, Tess has been really shining and has been elevated in a way that we would never really see much of him again, at least on Raw and SmackDown is concerned in this run. So, yeah, I think these two really brought it and told a really good story. Stephanie chatting with Kurt Angle backstage. She's stressed and concerned about tonight. Has to put all her money into this. And if the Alliance loses tonight, she'll have to be a regular person who has to buy her own groceries and clean her own house. Ew! But Kurt says she'll make sure Austin does not screw the Alliance tonight. Elsewhere, Lita and Jeff Hardy chatting backstage. Lita wonders if something's up with Matt, and it turns out someone's ears are burning. Matt says we should all act a little strange tonight because of what's at stake here. Because we're Team Extreme, and we're going to live our dream. He's got all the words down in his promo, but he's so rapid fire. He's just going a mile a minute with this thing. He does not have the confidence and the poise of course, he would later have in today's world as Matt Hardy. His promo style has gotten so much better from what it is here 20 years ago. The Hardy Boys leave, and Trish Stratus pops out in the same locker as Matt was just in. I think it's meant to be implied, oh, were Matt and Trish screwing around just back there behind Leader's back, but I'm not so sure because the locker room door is clearly labeled Team WWF, which seems to me that everyone from that side is in the locker room, all men and women huddle about, intermingling, so who knows who was screwing around with who back there. Time for a steel cage match by the WCW and WWF tag titles as the Dudleys I've seen the ref having a hard time getting all four belts up in the air. Heyman once again talking about the history of the belts and their respective lineages, but this time when he says one of these reigns will truly die tonight, he means it. It's a cage match with traditional tag rules, which makes no sense to me, and I hate it from the get-go, because how do you handle the whole climbing over the top rope thing? If the illegal man in his team climbs out of the cage when it's not legal, does that mean the team is disqualified? Matt hitting the ropes a lot, which means he's taking his own bump into the cage wall. Matt tags Jeff in, he's out the fire. We get back-to-back poetry in motion, and all four guys are in the ring fighting in the cage wall. And here out, tags don't seem to matter anymore. Top rope, blah, blah, blah. Jeff, the Dudleys show Matt face first.
Parties tonight.
Instead, and it's got to be rough for that moment. Nice game for the Dudleys. The Dudleys continue to punish him for a while. They split back into the cage wall. Jeff avoids not one, but two flying Dudleys. Matt comes back into the
When Matt Hardy, he's been squished.
Double chin attack onto Sutter. Stacy Keebler is judges.
He's been squished.
The keeper from the hip pocket was very great and from lock the cage door. I didn't ever figure out what was happening. But here's my thing about this. If Stacy wanted to get the team to follow around, if you really have to put on that knee, let's get them out. Tables down. Jeff fights back too hard and putting himself in the field for some reason. Jeff is climbing and has the whole thing won. But for some reason, that risky rascal, he wants to do something crazy. He jumps to the top of the cage and slashes through the empty table. The Dudleys pin and win to unify the belts, and Matt was pretty peeved. I give it 3 stars out of 5. This match was kind of like it was a lot ebb and flow. To start things off, I think the match rules were super confusing from the traditional the fun groove that those two teams are so well known for having. That was a very Jeff Hardy think that's the better move to do. You know what's funny is, like, I think the way that they're building the story up, you would think Matt would be the one to cost them the match. Even though Matt was selfish in climbing out first, like not clear it was Jeff, like, you know, Jeff definitely screwed up here more than him. And actually, it really helps justify, like, what Matt Hardy is going through. He's not just some sketchy, creepy guy, you know, doesn't like the situation for the heck of it. Like, he's actually feeling kind of motivated that this Hardy team, the Team Extreme, living the dream, is not working out. Commissioner Mick Foley is dominating New York, and he's not just a big hitter. Why? Well, Foley says he's been voted on Mr. Hands and Beaver, and the commissioner has to do this was out of the deal. Wow, he said he said that the Federation wins will be installed the next morning and has some choice words for Vince McMahon. Boy, does he ever. So Mick Foley is on his way out of the company. He's got one foot in the door right now, and he's also how he was used and treated, or mistreated, I guess, as the commissioner. He was brought back on TV to be this authority figure in an angle that already has way too many authority figures between Shane and Stephanie and William Regal and now Mick Foley and Vince McMahon is back. There's way too much stuff going on. So Foley was not really well used. He famously he went to a Raw show in Long Island, his hometown, where he lives. He was, oh, we have use for you. And the same thing happened more than the SmackDown location nearby. He seems to be a slam dunk for the decision. Hey, it's the two top between Mick Foley and his hometown against the basement. Foley for you. Battle the fourth. It's just not there. So there's no idea of these deals and what's going on. It does kind of lengthen up the figures to understand how Foley frustrated. The beginning of the figure is right. Look at that one. Backstage, Johnny Savani Foley. Yeah, that's just about to take this spot. Time now for the immunity battle royal. It's going to be over the the pay-per-view goes to the big tag team. This does touch the rumble before they become big. Trash Hall also back on pay-per-view for the first time in forever. This yeah, it's out immediately. Nice doing that. In comes Taz, and Paul Heyman is in shock. For Spain has been on the SmackDown before this pay-per-view. Paul Heyman did his classic, work shoot promo against Vince McMahon right to his face, telling about how his, ungrateful promises his father made. Still every territory and street and ultimate power in wrestling, or Vince called it sports entertainment because wrestling's a dirty win. These are really fun. I think that was one of the real bright spots. That's Paul Heyman time in but also just really good level in there. And it ends with Taz gets up from his commentary table and jumps in a little bit of a fight. It's a full throw off the line after repeating gets kicked in, and he then comes back and he calls it. Bradshaw, catches Billy Gunn. Tess taking out Cool and Bradshaw at the same time. Billy Gunn almost catches him, but Tess cuts him off and boosts him. Gunn goes flying. Tess wins and Billy Gunn pressing. I give it 1 star out of 5. This was a fairly short and aimless battle. The only people I saw who got a real time to shine and a real big spot in the battle royal are the Alliance guys at least. All kind of makes good stuff. And Cowboys Morris. For instance, I think it was good to have to sneak his way back in after losing the unification earlier. He's going to stay relevant to the important storyline here. I think he's very good. Very much kind of like a dumb knucklehead, but it's just, I think, a very good thing. And yeah, I can't say enough good things about Cash at this point in the Alliance unification storyline because I think the Booker T and Sheamus may have a chance. Look at their concept. Change the two something with Booker T Booker T right? All the other things the belt has been upheld, it's been removed from her, and so now we've got 6 women, 3 ladies from each team fighting for the same thing. We got Chris Stratton, Jacqueline, Vita, Henry, Ivy Mullins, and it's that. Formerly it's the development. So I'm just going everyone gets a little something in the Alliance ladies triple team Trish, but the WWF makes it say Lita and Jackie was supposed to be a most good thing. Jackie dumped her from the second attempt. Lita the main star, the thing's broken up. Lita dumped her. Jackie was supposed to be Trish Ivy, I give it 2 stars out of 5. This is another very good match. I think that it was well executed, but you could tell the ladies were not given a whole lot of time to do stuff. They were doing everyone did their stuff. And all the strongest female workers right now, which I think probably one place as well, look for one to do stuff, and I thought was very nice. Trish was by far the experience of the 6 ladies communicator. And it was just kind of a nice thing. But it was one of the pretty well protected. There was the practice of jazzers they used all the community of politics. This is now a one final powwow of the WWF and the rest is a undoing. This is a very limited time. This is going to be total shithead and everyone will hate you. He names that guys and Bunny Rogers and Jerry Graham, Jerome King, he screams, I see Peter Pan, me out. Doesn't forget about the notion of going to the Federation and they're fighting for survival. It's time for that very event, and winner take all Survivor Series matches will watch. Chris Jericho, Big Show, Undertaker, and Kane, the WWF, and the 2022 Austin, Booker T, come back to television. I'm sick of all this alliance crap. And so just like that, now it's time to finally wrap this shit up in a bow and get things over with. The winner take all match announced for Survivor Series, and whichever team wins, the other company is out of business. So after several months of their team, don't care about these. They're sitting on the seems kind of forced and out of nowhere. Apparently, they were going to go through with Vince being in the match, but he was injured going sideways, and if Rob Van Dam actually did defect the Federation from the Alliance, like I think it would have made a lot more sense, probably had the problem. The Rock and Chris Jericho was an infighting for weakness, really patched things up for now for business was taken care of. Meanwhile, Vince McMahon kept slowly pulling himself with respect to the Alliance and compounding the Federation with Survivor Series. After most of the Alliance speaking, extremely confident, having an answer for everything, and seemed to have his in the one on the Federation. Every week of all these words and deceptions, now that it's low key for speculation, often the true deception was used as totally rather than a particular suffering from this entire suffering has been scattered by this one rumor that they got. The go ahead Ralph Anderson of the Wrestling Conference is used as actually seeing Mark Greenville and you will not see that on the network, by the way, because it's copyright. Then the final moment matchup, everyone getting their skin or opposite calling. There, that's how I was feeling. You know, most people were in the same state of red, which confuses me. The match starts off with Austin and Rock brawling, and one by one, the members of each team cycle through a razor around. Getting things for the discontinuous sneaky pinfall system, which gets a shame the Twisted stand. Undertaker works over Twisted 2, Austin, and the Alliance do some sneaking and take over. Big Show finally in the ring for all the minutes, and Show takes the angle slam, the scissors kick, slide star, then the spinning elbow for the first elimination. About a minute after that, though, and the Show slam, Tombstone, Alliance song, and Chain Shot. Booker just saying the whole thing breaks down into a brawl. RVD with a top rope flying kick and Chain is gone. Taker on a huge run, striking everything that moves. It's the last slide. Taker to the center, grabs his bottom, Undertaker's gone. Rock goes Booker T and Kurt Angle rolls him up. Booker's eliminated. I just counted by the Rock where he catches RVD on the top rope and the power RVD just throws in the camera with a big old shot of Chris on the spot. There I gotta say, he's talking to himself. He blocks a split-legged moonsault, hits the breakdown, and Jericho leaves RVD. Well, there's Henry with a big old shot of Chris on the spot. There I gotta say, he's talking to himself. He blocks a split-legged moonsault, hits the breakdown, and Jericho eliminates RVD. Well, there goes the most compelling part of this scene. Down the Rock and Jericho versus Austin and Angle. Jericho really gets Angle caught with both ankle off for a second, but otherwise spread the Rock after the CC alliance. Rock hits the tag and goes down. This is much nicer than grabbing skill Angle than did Jericho the previous match. Makes Angle touch the front shooter. Austin's mouth is bent over. And he takes on Jericho. He turns a
Who's there?
Austin eliminates Jericho. Jericho stays in the ring and hits Rock with a breakdown because he's an idiot, I guess. Rock is Jericho. Jericho wants to win. Thinking he's the original Vince gets Chris to back. Austin throws Rock out of the ring and getting up to the sound of Rock makes the one. Fight on the outside is JR with anti-Oklahoma slander. Kick my ass. You step on Oklahoma 2 minutes. Austin with a sharp shooter. You get a reference to Moxley. And goes, why doesn't Henry ring the bell? And JR says, because the Rock's not captain. And then he goes, that never stopped Henry before. Austin strides and fails through the title of the weapon. Rock gets him with a sharp shooter with a rope break. Austin with a low
Forward.
stunner. JR and Austin use edge of the stunner. And John hates him of the word. The pinfall, but can you see Patrick? Austin with his own rock bottom with the Rock kicked out. Austin goes down up to the legal up to Patrick. And then Edwards knocked out as well. He gets his own teammate Austin with a government title. He's in the bowl with
Hello, who's there?
I give it 3.5 stars out of 5. It's really some of the drama and the stakes in this matchup were conveyed a lot more in the commentary than the wrestling itself. I mean, it's not hard to really see it. If you just put everything on mute and didn't know what this match is about, you really wouldn't have a good sense of it, I think. And, the revelation of Angle being the double agent, all along, still feels weird. Felt weird back then. It feels weird going back to it now. I felt the same way when he turned at the same time, back 20 years ago, and now watching it. Doesn't make sense. I basically, it does justify his turn to the Alliance, knowing he will eventually turn back against them. But by this point, it feels like another swerve for the sake of a swerve. There's no meat on that bone. The horse has been beaten dead. It was a bridge too far. I know that for many people, Angle turning to the Alliance was kind of a demotivator. A lot of people stopped watching wrestling. That was another one of the final nails in the coffin. So, yeah, did see Angle come back to the team and help the WWF win that match, but I think it's got too late. Fans have
Who's on the table?
This is one of his private jets. Paul Heyman is heads down, and it's basically just turning very long on commentary. All the champions, regardless of what side they were on, kept their job. William Regal is the first person to join the Vince McMahon Kiss My Ass Club. And Vince, who is now introducing the heel gimmick, wants to award the title to Kurt Angle for his action. Then Stone Cold Steve Austin shows up, beats them up, is a good guy again, and has never been accountable for his actions. His first physical Federation since June ever. Well, yes, he's never made accountable for his perceived crime. So, I imagine a whole field run was worth it. Oh yeah, by the way, Ric Flair returns to Federation as Vince McMahon's co-owner, his partner, the Bebop Singing Japanese WWF stock. Well, the story for another time. My grade for Survivor Series 2001 is a B. Before the show and all series, there are a few matches that are kind of in the middle for me, or matches that I would have rated higher had they been given more time, and they did have very slow finishes. There was a new steel cage match, and the main event was solid. You know, the angle twist at the end was just kind of like felt strange, kind of like a lackluster.
Show me what you've got.
2001. What a year it was for professional wrestling. The landscape changed dramatically between January and December, and now at long last, the World Wrestling Federation is finally the last company left standing. So let us celebrate by crowning the first ever undisputed champion at the first ever Vengeance pay-per-view from December 9th, 2001 at the San Diego Sports Arena in San Diego, California. The show was nominated by Howard Bowles, Daniel Howell, Steven Slater 007, Alan with regret. 10,800 people in attendance here, about 315,000 pay-per-view buys. Your commentary team back together again. Jim Ross and Jeremy Lawler in return to his success. The Raw after Survivor Series, after Paul Heyman was banished to Shadow Realm for a bit. This opening hype package for this pay-per-view is
your presence here will not be tolerated.
Kind of a running thing in pay-per-view hype packages for the last year or so.
Show me what you've got.
Freddie Blassie walking forward wrestling. Well, a bunch of weird just happening in the background. There's a spaceman, there's a cloud, a woman dancing in a tattered dress, and they were splicing footage of Ivy Koloff and skiing Lex Luger, Hulk Hogan. What is even happening? Some was pointing out here that sledgehammer imagery is all over the show. So you can see this on the poster, but there's no here. Concerning the world to come back. This was a return show, but he was not quite fully rehabbed for the squad injury he suffered earlier in the year, so he was held back a little bit to his return pretty well. One bit of fun. When he got the street face when they were returning to Rikishi. Of course, that was the big blow-off to what began today after Survivor Series, with the beginning of the Vince McMahon Kiss My Ass Club. The famous scene saw William Regal become the first person to do it, and all months Vince didn't want to care, wanting people to kick his ass in a very forceful manner. He did it with Jim Ross to follow the youth. He wanted Austin and The Rock and Chris Stratus to do it, so he finally got his comeuppance on the Go Home SmackDown when he was forced to kiss The Rock's ass. So The Rock was really humiliating and toying with Vince the whole time. He teased his ass was going to be kissed, then Jim Ross's ass, then Chris Stratus' ass, and then in the end it was finally Rikishi, who, like I said, was finally back on TV. He had a shoulder injury and was gone for the entire invasion. Well, here at Vengeance, Vince telling the people not to laugh at the misfortune of billionaires, which feels like a very familiar sentiment we're still seeing 20 years later. He's actually trouble by saying, he who laughs last, laughs the loudest. And out comes the 50-50 owner of the World Wrestling Federation, talking about Ric Flair. He made his return to the company on the Raw Survivor Series. The story is he purchased Shane and Stephanie's stock in the Federation, then they used that money to buy WCW and ECW respectively. So Flair's got 50% stock and ownership, so he and Vince are constantly trying to one up each other in the story here. The Flair shows up, tells Vince to shut up, and let's start the show with this tag team match. Albert and Scotty 2 Hottie take on Tess and the European champion Christian. Scotty and Tess had been beefing since the previous month of Survivor Series, with Tess beat up Scotty to take his place in the Immunity Battle Royal, which is the one to win. Albert, who was Intercontinental Champion at one point this year, is important to remember, is now teaming with Scotty as a hip-hop pickup. And it's crazy to think that up until recently, when Scott Taylor and stuff was released from NXT, he and Albert were still working together up until this year, working together in NXT. It's crazy how it's been working. Also, still loving Christian as European champion. Kind of a spin on D'Lo's gimmick for a time. And considering that some doctor also is European, he's just too fluid here. He's doing hilarious stuff. One of my favorite runs of this year. And these two are part of a new faction that was formed out of the Ashley as the Alliance after Survivor Series. So these two, if we're Regal and the Thunder Boys, they're all coming with each other lately. They have to keep those down after Survivor Series because they were either all champions, won a battle royal, or just another television. They're the huge group dominating the news card and making the four-man event guys in the show.
Look, just stop right there, all right? I can't let you leave with that amulet. I need it right now.
The Funkadelics, MC Crackers, Run BMW, and the Tasty Boys.
What, you think I didn't know what you're up to? I knew you were looking for it. I knew you'd find it, and I had to stop you. Now, hand it over. I took the other one, and that should have been enough. I shouldn't have to go through all this just to get rid of her. It's not even as if I was going to keep it forever. I was going to give it back to her once I'd gotten what I wanted. That's not so wrong, is it? Once she helped me advance out of that place and step down, then she could have it back. Why did you have to get in the way? Why are you trying to ruin everything?
When that happens, he's better off selling his soul together. Nice promo. The Intercontinental Championship. Edge got in Regal's business the last couple of weeks, which led to this match. Also, Regal has now incorporated the power of the punch, aka the brass knuckles, into his repertoire. He was given the knuckles by Vince shortly after Survivor Series, and now he's been using it in matches to great success. Edge is off to a good start. Regal cuts him off on the outside. Regal really laid it in on Edge with the knees, a European uppercut, another big knee lift off the ropes. Edge blocks an attack with a swinging neck breaker and begins to make a comeback. Nice hurricane run by Edge. Edge launching Regal out over the ropes by his legs. Haven't seen that done before. Goes for a spear, but runs right from steps instead. As the referee checks on him, Regal pulls out the brass knuckles hidden in the ring. Regal hits 3 tiger bombs this match. 2 different in a row, and Edge kicks out of all of them. Regal pulls up the nuts, but walks right into the spear for the win. Edge retains. I give it 3 stars out of 5. I liked both the people in this matchup, but I thought this performance was not either of their best work in the last several months. I did enjoy, though, the physicality and the story with the brass knuckles at the end. Speaking of which, the brass knuckles, of course, would go on to be a big component of Regal's gimmick for the rest of his time as a wrestler and beyond. Same as the GM of NXT, you always saw the brass knuckles placed on a nice little velvet pedestal on his desk. So it's kind of fun to see the very humble beginnings of the brass knuckle component being brought in. Co-owner Ric Flair is chatting backstage on the phone when Kurt Angle shows up. He calls Flair a 14-time world champion. Whoops. He tries to talk Flair down and insists that he's going to win it all tonight. And Flair's like, yeah, man, that's cool. It's good for you. Good luck. I believe in you. Kurt's trying to get Flair all riled up, but it's not working. Either that or Kurt's trying to convince himself of what's the next one, but it's not working. I think it's really funny in this scene. A rare moment in which Ric Flair plays a straight man. Elsewhere, Rita's warming up in her referee shirt when Matt Hardy shows up. And Matt acknowledges it's been part of all of them lately, but it finally to show everyone why he's the better Hardy, which of course is the most important thing here. Lita warns Matt, even though they're dating in a relationship, she has to remain objective. Matt says the two of them are going to celebrate springtime after she wins. And we go to that match now, brother versus brother. The first breakup feud, first of all, will be several down the line for the Hardy Boys as Matt takes on Jeff. We've been seeing this whole thing play out for several months. And the Hardy Boys social Matt being a rude a-hole, he's been overbearing in the partnership with Pete and Jeff. This beef between them goes back to them being little kids. Lita gets caught in the middle and has nothing to nonsense that Matt helps with the referee. In real life, it's really true they're all about how you see it in this comic. Jeff is starting to go through a significant downward spiral. He's a lot more distant. He's been showing up late to events. He's been no-show to events in the build-up to this. And so, he's not at his best point here. And I'm thinking, oh, that explains the half. The match begins with some basic stuff, the arm wrenches and takeovers. Matt takes over, and the fan seems pretty disinterested here. Matt goes for second rope leg drop, but misses. Jeff comes back at his own leg drop. Lita helps Jeff out of the spear as well, which Matt does take exception to. Matt goes for a sunset flip powerbomb to the outside, but Jeff counters to a hurricane rana. Jeff seems to hurt himself flipping back into the ring, but Matt shows no mercy, goes after the leg, gets Jeff in the half trap, but there's a rope break. Matt gets thrown outside. Jeff is super capitalized, though. There's a double down. But Jeff counters. Matt tries to cheat to win, but Lita won't.
Sweet panting train.
Everybody's talking about the hero of Kavash. They say he actually went into an Oblivion gate and destroyed it. No doubt.
Nothing has changed. Found it, have you? Silenced the hands that betrayed you?
He's a bit crazy for Doc.
Ah, child. I thank you for helping me. With the voices quieted for now, the words you seek have come to me. Though I must warn you, I have seen things in your future. It will be up to you to decide the fate of many. Life and... Your time has come. The Arcane University needs you, child. Romanus Polus waits for you even now. Great things will... Take care.
Backstage, women's champion Trish Stratus.
Spike your hair.
She didn't attack on the chick for good luck. Then a lot of seconds her back and says, after this big title match tonight, there'll be plenty of time for Trish to smell what the Rock's cooking. Ooh, she looks intrigued. Man, what a year Trish Stratus had in 2001. She, started off the year as Mr. McMahon's mistress, and then she was teasing something with Jeff Hardy before she got hurt. She comes back and she wins the championship, and now they're doing this relationship with her and The Rock, which back then and now, I watch it, there's no chemistry. I do not feel anything when I see these interact with each other. It's like, it doesn't make sense. I don't feel like they're both the top male female stars of the company at this point, but seeing them together on screen and being around, it just doesn't click with me. It's very Hollywood in a sense, or it's like you're supposed to believe how this chemistry, but I don't see it. So what makes the matchup? Those kind of came out thin air the last week or so. It's for the tag team championship as the W7 against Kane and the Big Show, who beat the Hardys in a number of contenders match that Matt has asked for despite their being hurt. You know what's interesting is that Undertaker turned heel the week after Survivor Series, we'll get to in a little bit, but I don't think Kane ever once addresses his brother's change of heart of anything. Because, these guys were a pretty solid tag team in the Monster and the Invasion ending, and, they were
Seeing it?
Looking to lighten your load, but fill up your coin purse?
Both dummies are taken outside. Kane dives hard up top. Stacey Kiddo, she talks about it, so Big Show comes to be a good time to pants her, then give her a big spanking. Boy, talking about something that has not aged well. Ref gets distracted, which allows for a what's-up on Kane. Big Show gets a hot tag, and it's all over brother Oblivon. Goes to Show Sam and takes a
You've got a great deal there.
But he takes out his own accident, then Big Show returns to save her moments later. An exposed turnbuckle shows drop face first onto a 3D. The W's win and retain the gold. This one gets 2 stars out of 5 for me. It's a bit of a flawed tag match. I mean, the W's bumped their asses off for Kane the Big Show and made them look amazing, so I'll give them credit for that. But I thought all this match had going for it. It's like it's a placeholder match for all 4 guys, and also it's going to beat up his pay-per-view. Backstage, Lita apologizes to Matt for her mistake earlier, but Matt's having none of it. I'll go to the Hardcore Championship match as Rob Van Dam defends against the Undertaker. So that was a big story from the week of the Survivor Series. The Undertaker finally turned heel because Vince McMahon was trying to get Jim Ross to join the Kiss My Ass Club, and you had Taker making a save supposedly, talking about all the different wrestlers who come and gone before him, like Hogan and Shawn and Brett. All these different guys who kissed Vince's ass, but Taker and kissed Vince's ass.
That's a fair deal.
Yes, they are. We're going to kiss his ass. He goes, hell no. And Taker goes, does that mean you think you're better than me? And so this whole story now is Taker not getting the respect he feels
Thank
he
you.
deserves
Come
for a decade plus.
It's been a pleasure doing business.
Taker has cut his hair. He's got the short. Taker at this point, immediately, like his character in the system, a lot more like his Jordan movie. So I remember a lot of Taker's performance. Get to that in like
Be happy to.
at the end of this. So what a difference a heel turn makes for Taker. Because for me, it justifies my.
Have a look at my wares. I'm sure there's something to suit you.
And of course, now this great reset after the election.
Well met.
You need some people to be really alive.
What can I interest you
Taker,
in?
I think he's gotten the most he could have out of the babyface biker run. So it felt about time for a heel Taker run. Van Dam catching Taker off guard at first, the quickness, big senton off the top rope, fire on the outside, action spills into the crowd. RVD goes for a dive, but Taker just sidesteps him. Taker grabs the fans, Mexican flag,
You too.
to choke out Van Dam. But with a big reaction from the fans there, Van Dam front over a barricade against Ball and stage. The ball continues by the stage area. Taker grabs the tail of Van Dam, blinds into the fire extinguisher. Van Dam climbs the stairs, dives off on the Taker, and then with a bag of style, apparently. Back up on the stage, Taker gets control. He lines our RVD. Goes to the left. Pull something and gets away for a moment. Rolling thunder on the steel, then a running graphic with the chair. They're fighting near the edge of the stage. RVD goes to Van Dam later. Taker jumps it, but chokes them off the stage and through some tables and debris. The cover, the win, and the new champion. This was a match unlike anything RVD had experienced so far in his time in the company, and it was a big test for him to the state pay-per-view match, high profile with Taker, who had wrestled before on TV, and beat him. So this one felt a lot different because of the face and heel dynamic, obviously. Taker took a lot more from Van Dam here than I felt he had taken from anyone else in the alliance combined before this point. So it was pretty refreshing to see. I think these styles meshed really well for each other, and it was all that. Ric Flair's on the phone again. Now he's cut off by Chris Jericho. He says he can see that Ric Flair does not have the confidence in him to win it all tonight. Flair again being diplomatic and saying Chris to go for it, but Chris says it's not a matter of if, but when. Because when he wins, he's going to get Flair to hand him something he's never had, the undisputed title. What we getting after the women's championship match as Trish Stratus defends against Jacqueline. Oh, look, another women's title match with zero bills. Because as far as I can recall from watching the shows leading up to this, Trish and Jackie never once interacted in the build of this pay-per-view. Because Trish spent all along when she wasn't kissing the rock, she was seeing Stacey Keebler and Brady Bowl match. And Jackie was showing me to win for the women's when she beat Crack Hollywood. I feel bad for the two ladies here, especially Jackie, because she was given the task of having a straight-up wrestling match with a relatively green Trish, making her look good, teaching her, and to get a "We Want Puppies" chant from the crowd about a minute in. There's some happy feet to start things off, but then Jackie slows things down and takes control. Jackie sweeps the leg, but it looks bad for both ladies. So miscommunication on the roll-up out of the corner looks like a video game glitch. Jackie blocks the Stratus faster and levels Trish as Jerry can't stop commenting on the color of Trish's bra. Trish ends up winning the match with a backslide and retains. I give it a half star out of 5. It was not a great match. There were a lot of missteps throughout, and also it was a very short match. And also Jerry Law's commentary did not help. I was pining for Paul Heyman to return pretty strongly as this match is going on. And at least after this match, we can go into it and walk away from it thinking, well, hey, Trish does get better over time. We get a recap of Vince getting his face shoved from the Quiche's ass. The big Quiche is reporting live from WWF New York and says he's back and ready to back that ass up again. All we go now to the main event portion of this pay-per-view. Now, as we saw for Survivor Series, WCW is no more, and therefore no more reason for a WCW championship. So it's renamed the World Title, and it's going to be absorbed here in this unification series of matches. It's 4-man, 3 matches, 2 titles, and 1 undisputed champion. These series of matches were made by Flair and McMahon working together to create this main event. Most of the build-up has revolved around the Kiss My Ass Club. The very introduction of the matches themselves gets pyro, which I like a lot. The commentary feels like a huge deal, as it should be. The WWF Championship, and even though it's not like controlled by the original WCW, that championship still has a lot of history and lineage to it. So it is very important. The top 2 American world titles being unified here is a big deal. And you know, even though we've seen a couple of good matches throughout the show up to this point, I feel this is the first time that we actually are watching honest to God like big pay-per-view. The first championship match sees Stone Cold Steve Austin defend the WWF Championship against Kurt Angle. Lots of history with these two in the last year, mostly one-sided though. Some good back and forth to start things out. Austin starts working over Angle's arm. The fight goes in and out of the ring. Angle slamming Austin's leg into the ring post. Nice figure four around the post as well. Angle on the attack with suplexes, 3 Germans in a row. Goes for his moonsault, but alas, he misses. Austin begins to make a comeback, hit the spine buster, even with some Germans of his own. 2 more than Angle did. There was a low blow, hit the Angle slam as a kick out. Kurt's frustrated here, goes for his own stunner, but Austin gets out of it. Hits his own stunner.
God damn it.
The title and
You weren't supposed to fucking do all that.
Stars at 5. The match was fine. It was okay considering these two guys, but they've done it better in matches they've done earlier in the year. I think that we really hadn't seen before with this one. And also, to go back to Kurt Angle, we'll talk about this more than Dave time, but just the fact that this is the same guy who survived 3 stunners in the match earlier this year, and I was taken out by 1-7 from Austin in a match that wasn't nearly as good as that one. So, yeah, again, what happened right after we saw this as recently as like 2 months before that. King and JR seem to be killing time before we get a backstage segment with Tess barging on Trish Stratus. She's responded to a lot differently than she did with Hugh Morris and Chavo Guerrero bars in Manchester. Tess saw how she kissed The Rock, and now it's his turn. Hook you up, baby. Trish wants none, and Tess dares her to try and get him fired, but of course he is immune, which he reminds you of for several months after this. All we get now to the WCW Championship match as The Rock defends once again against Chris Jericho. In Survivor Series, Jericho has gone full-blown heel, and now he's got to really full of himself. He calls himself a living legend, which did briefly get him and a company in American situations. He's got
call the landlord and tell him it seems that there's a hole in the vents, and when we turn the AC on, the air's just going out the bottom. Can he come back?
No.
Some fighting at ringside. Back in the ring, Jericho with a top rope spinning elbow. Even tries a cocky pin. I think I ever beat somebody once with that revenge. Jericho wears down the Rock, gets him on the sleeper.
Yes!
Fights out of it, but Jericho stops him, hits the lion.
Yeah?
The Rock kicks out. Jericho goes into it with referee Evans, and he takes him out.
Yeah, that was different.
Yeah, that was different.
Jericho runs in the corner, goes sweeping the ring post and tumbles to the floor. He recovers and catapults the Rock into the post. He wants to hit the Rock with his own auto. Right? A Rock bottom attempt counters the inside the Rock with Jericho counters another Rock bottom with the breakdown.
Sandwich time.
Stops it, goes to the sharpshooter, but Jericho reverses to one of the airlines. The Rock is passing out to the pain and he just goes except it's the rope break. He distracts the referee. The Rock's back.
It wasn't a squeak. I said it wasn't a squeak.
You heard it too, that's right.
He was like, eh. Of course I heard it.
This match I thought very similar to for the championship that Jericho also won. Great story here, great intensity. As good as Angle with Matthew was for a long their run in 2001, I think Jericho and Fox for the tail end of the year who will pick up two. I think this is a great example of that. Jericho has zero coverage.
What?
But then Rock with another good Jericho goes to the even. Another 2 championship match begins with a double down. Jericho is up first and is on the attack. Austin comes out of the corner with a spear and fights back. Fight goes to the outside. Austin starts peeling back padding on the concrete floor. Onto the Spanish announce table now. Jericho blocks a stunner, goes to the walls, but Austin throws him off. Back in the ring, Austin takes a shoulder and post. Jericho with one of his 2004 moves, armbar. Now it's Wilson. Jericho goes to the top and he's got on his way down.
Fucking 3-pointed post right here, man.
Jericho looks for a flying ball. Henderson takes all that. It sounds like there's some wild Triple H in the crowd here. Keep dreaming. Here comes Mr. And again with referee Nick Patrick. Ric Flair stops him, but we get the Patrick flop. McMahon sucker punches Flair, throws him in the post.
Which one?
Austin makes his comeback, catches Jericho, triple drop in the Austin crowd. Jericho tapping out, but there's no referee. Mr. T runs in and decks Austin in the back of the head with the WWF title. He doesn't work here. Having her back here, the cover, the count, and the three. Chris Jericho.
The one about frolicking?
Oh.
Mr. McMahon laughs at last.
You didn't get my other ones?
Oh, yeah, there.
It bit the fucking pole.
So I called you and I asked him, like, are you okay?
If anybody else would have did that, we would have fucking let, like, all hell would have been. Jim did it.
Oh, so it's fine then?
Not so much interference here, but I mean, again, it's the way the story is built.
She pissed us all off. Because we were, unloading the truck and we're all talking, having a conversation. And she comes off the truck to go to the bathroom. Let's run in your mouth and get to work. Like, fuck you. Like, my mouth doesn't have nothing to do with my fucking legs or my arms. I can talk and work at the same damn time.
They're not just the secondary championship, like it was kind of perceived
all
it was at the time. The whole
Who the fuck says that? Like, we're standing there talking. We're walking and talking. You know what I mean? So then we were silent after that. That's fucking lame.
My grade for the final show, the Invasion Squad, was 20 years later. Vengeance 01 is a B-. I think the historical significance of those last 3 matches.
I'm sorry that you're in the truck and you can't talk to nobody.
Puts this one in the upper grade category for me. But the undercard, for the most part, is pretty uninspired. Not a lot of terrible matches on this show, but then for the ones we saw in the undercard, with a couple of exceptions, with the RVD and Taker, and maybe to a lesser extent, Steven and Edge, just, not truly great. Just kind of like in the middle. It just seems like so much of the big storytelling devices went away when the invasion was over and the Alliance lost. So you have a lot of characters kind of floating in the ether. A lot of the matches we saw built up in this thing had no villain. Very little, and so not a lot of reason to get behind a lot of the undercard in this thing. But the importance of those last 3 matches and unifying the belt, I think, is a big deal. I think it was very clever, the fact that they were really kind of swerve the audience with the entire goal for this show, whether they wanted to admit it or not, was like Ron Austin. That's what we were kind of wanting to see in the finals.
Perhaps you need new armor, a weapon. I have a large selection of both.
Field character over the 3 years we're starting to develop. And that was well done. Again, as a Jericho fan, it's a big moment for me. So that's why I put the grade up a little bit higher here and give it a decent
Goodbye. Something like that, yeah.
It's really crazy to watch all this programming back from May of 01 to the end of the year. And we're seeing how much change in the company, in the wrestling landscape, in that time period. And to watch it back again, we watched it the first time as it was happening.
No, anyone was scared of her.
She was cool. Earlier videos I'd done about the invasion. So after having looked back extensively at this product 20 years ago, it's now time for some final comments.
You okay?
Yeah. Sweaty cheek wife.
I am sweaty cheek.
Sweaty cheeks.
Stone Cold Steve Austin. Like again,
Good.
I have a doctor's appointment in the morning. I have to go to the OB/GYN.
What?
It's the OB/GYN.
What the fuck is
You don't know what an OB/GYN is?
Oberton?
Gynecologist?
Horrible dream. You were seeing. I don't know if it was that bad, but still pretty bad. You were so evil.
Yeah, you're evil to me in my dreams.
You were so evil. I was like, I'm gonna leave you if you don't leave that drug dealer. And you were like, I don't care. He gives me drugs. He had a group of weird drug buddies, and they all kept trying to stab me and shoot me. And I kept trying to fucking tell you on your dad, but I couldn't get your dad on the phone. I'm like, I'm gonna tell your dad. And then I think you did, after a while, you did want to come home, but then they couldn't because they all wanted me dead or some shit.
Dream.
Good day.
Horrible dream. You said
Looks
you
like
really let your hair grow out?
I don't know.
you're needed in Coral. Report to Velena Dunton. She's got some duties for you to take care of. I'm sorry. Bye.
Bye.
Beautiful town.
Oh, yeah, no, there's lots of places like that, and Jane Hall is nice.
Why do you run so weird?
I can jump on the water.
Jesus.
I can't walk on it yet, but I can run on it.
You can
Or
walk.
I can't. I can jump on it. I can't walk on it yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You will be able to?
Yeah.
How do you do that?
It's just your acrobatics. They have to be higher.
I love that bridge. Oh my god, it's so pretty. I have a picture at work, like a little one of those plaque things.
Yeah.
And it says something about being a good teacher or whatever I can get.
Well met.
And then tomorrow was give her a flower day. I guess I'm gonna give her a flower.
Give the teacher a flower day. You'll get nothing out of me.
Well,
12? Not a 12?
And then he's treated like a jobber in the Battle Royal. He comes back to become a man because, oh, this is what I did. The whole thing is full.
hey, I need to pick up those Amy. I need that card.
Okay, I'll message you.
Hey, it should be from Sunbit or Ollie's or something. I need it. Because that's how I'm going to have to pay my doctor's bill tomorrow.
I think that would have taken it to a whole day.
Hail, Sir Knight.
I'm not saying anything new when I feel there's a lot of money left on the table with the storyline, the Asian angle, I should say. And of course, people have written think pieces and have done videos booking the invasion for a very long time. So I thought if I ever coach here, so if you want to hear some great fantasy cooking about the invasion 20 years later, go check that out.
Because she said, I can't wait to be done with school.
Yeah.
And so she said, I didn't even bring it up. She's like, I can't wait to be done with school.
No.
It was fun. It was passable. But there's a thing here.
Today's Cinco de Mayo.
Yeah.
What can I do?
Guess I'd say, for today only, I'm El Cucaracha. El Cucaracha. El Cucaracha. Oh, fuck, am I looking for the Fighters Guild?
Sucks everybody's fucking energy out. Can't even have a good time while fucking working. We're slaves.
Slavs. About the what, Slavs?
Shut up.
Shut the fuck up. Keep working
I
away.
looked at Ty and I was like, my legs have nothing to do with my mouth. It's like, I started laughing. And then she come back out of the bathroom and was like, "Hey, shh."
And those are my final thoughts on the engagement on Thunder 01. What did you think?
Just to double up.
Speaking.
Just to double up. Shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up, mate. Fuck you. I love you.
And then, look at these animals. When I pulled up, there was a squirrel in the chair.
So these animals. These animals.
Over the course of the next year, but all is based on your feedback and what you guys want to see me do in the month of December. The next time it's time to review the last video of the group this year. You guys have been showing that. So the very special review. We've got the AWA. I'm going to get this over with.
Don't me. I'm just gonna pee on me. On me.
Viewers, I apologize. And I hope that the month of June is my way of making it up to you. By trying to think about what's the most antithetical thing to do. So think of that dedicated concept. You know, TNA bounces, right? So that's what we saw with the TNA. Eventually, I'm going back into the TNA waters for the making from June 19th at the Impact Zone in Orlando, Florida. This show is available on the West Coast here in Fireheart over at Patreon.com. Which is the first anniversary of this video. It is the third anniversary of the blog. John Bruce and his company conducted the most without booking. This is Carter, one of Jesse's distributors booking, and looking at other people in the company to be able to put on that in and just sit at home and there's this guy explaining the free show or the pay-per-view for the that is the end of Jesse Rose this year. And to top it all off, TNA is currently without a TV at the time of this show. Their deal with Fox Sports Network expired about 2 or 3 weeks before Celebration, so there's a huge gap of time where there is no real television presence, no real build to this picture, as much build as they could out the way before, like, I'd say 2 weeks or so before the pay-per-view. It said that the feature shows it's like for the time being, we wouldn't be on strike so much later in the year. So this is a really scary time to look at the grand scheme of things in TNA. Without TV has this new bursting brand, they were in a big amount of trouble with TV. In fact, one thing I'll put over about this show is that we are really good job of getting on every show, why, how, these folks are all wrestling. Some shows you're left wondering, there's some details and context I missed. You don't miss any of this show because, hey, they have no TV for 2 or 3 weeks. They're going to do everything they can to widen the fans up and see why this is happening. 775 folks active in time. So somewhere between 15 to 20,000 acres combined. Mike Tanay and John Arrett and Paul Flynn, very poetic prose to pontificate upon with his opening night after all of yesterday and today. That yesterday we were dreaming the thousands of animation. We were youthful zealots embracing the promise of tomorrow. We were pioneers with bold ambition on leveling bold ambition. They said, the car shot in Japan, and the one time we saw William Jackson this year, it's very bold of them to happen. Just what just happened on the pre-show, where Jeff Jarrett was injured with a tendon Jeff Hardy man. Beats the heck out of the poor kid. He even gets arrested, get out of the building and handcuffed. Therefore, it's up against innocent match. Now he finds out that he previously suspended a waiver and is turned into a match in the late of the year. We're in there by Larry Zabisco. He is the attack. really strong television. I'll get more into the details of that whole story thing. We open up with a six-man exhibition match featuring Zach Gallen, Cornell Clark, Amazing Red, Felix Skipper, Shark Boy, and he's been credited with making this particular show. Gallen is shit on his way down the line. It's very surprising to me to believe it. Oh, that's right. This is for joining this. Marcus was big swing was really head on his skipper and started having his broken up. Finally, Shark Boy takes down the Illyrian. He's like, DS3 for the win. He gave it up to him. So the top, he was asking a whole lot of sizzle and a lot of steak. He was given a start with cramming his legs, nice spots as possible could. Into this 7-minute match, you got about a minute and change per wrestler for the times out doing this thing. But I think they made the most of the time. It was the match that was basically designed for this high spot, make the crowd up, get them wild up for the show. That's certainly a compliment. You see Abyss backstage. He's getting ready for King of the Mountain by punching a mirror. Elsewhere, Shane Douglas is your roving reporter up this night. He's interviewing Shocker. Big star. Shocker claims to be the best luchador in the whole world, but he's interrupted by a very young Kelly. Kelly says he can do all the stuff. Saturday on Sundays even. He's got a counter for everything that can see Shocker out there. Shocker responds to it as that's how he plays that out. By the way, he does Shane Douglas briefly had Michael Shane as his protege, I believe the Beast franchise, like year before this. But they really should have gone all the way with this. He had a huge opportunity by having him not also replace this. You could have Shane Douglas led by Shane Douglas. It's the new franchise. Shocker return Alex Shelley, and now that Dusty Rhodes is gone as Booker of TNA, that gives Shelley an opportunity to re-sign with the company since he previously left the year before due to the fact that Dusty was underutilized when Dusty was in charge. Meanwhile, Shocker was best known for his work with CMLL. He made his TNA debut a while back at Destination X. He was under a mask and took off the mask to reveal some guy most of the crowds aren't going to know. But I love how Shocker is. Oh my God, he's Shocker! He's a masked wrestler in Mexico, so I was expecting first thing, fighting it's a Shocker! McDonald's commercial! Wow! That's a great accolade for McDonald's commercial! That gets me excited to watch this new wrestler, whose face, by the way, we don't see on McDonald's commercial because I think it's quite a lot to look up what they're talking about, what McDonald's commercial is. And it's one where as a masked wrestler, you can't bite into the burger because the mask is too restricted, so you gotta take it off, and then people around are like, oh, he's got a mask, and he's got a mask on underneath, and they're like, oh, sad. So then why would the wrestler wear two masks if he knew he was gonna go out and eat a burger? But be that as it may, that was his claim to fame, and TNA was gonna hang their hat on when they brought Shocker into the company. But Shocker has been getting a big push in TNA as of late, challenging the Exhibition title, so he's no slouch. Some grabs to start things off. Shelly looking good at first, but Shocker has moves of his own. Shelly stops for a moment to beg off. Even kicks at Shocker's foot, but aha, to the roof. Nice maneuvering by Shelly with the ropes for a moment, dives to the outside, but nobody home. Back in the ring, Shocker goes to the moonsault, but Shelly stops him. Shelly goes up top, goes for a flying nothing, but falls right into Shocker's trap with a drop kick. He follows up with a suicide dive. Pulls back and forth to the screen. Shocker kicks out a twisting Fisherman's neck breaker. He continues to kick out a baseball punch, catching Shelly in one of the most ridiculous roll-ups I've ever seen in a woman match. I give this one 3.5 stars out of 5. This is a very enjoyable match. It featured a lot of moves you don't normally see. It wasn't whiz bang spot. You had some of that cruiserweight, luchador mystery, but it was a nice hybrid of styles kind of coming together here. I like the chemistry between Shelley and Shocker. I think the crowd definitely resistance. The show recaps the greatest moments in TNA history as voted by the fans. Number 5 is AJ Styles winning the NWA World title for the first time in June of 2003. Backstage, Shane Douglas is with 3 Live Crew. BG James, where's your heart? Conan reiterates things bad about it. Steve promises his friends that are BFFs. His heart is with them and says that his actions will prove where World's alive. His four wings said that made it feel like this is really turning on the last four of the show. Let's see if I'm right. Up next, Chris Dillon is picked up. Oh, how crazy is it that those guys are still actively wrestling 19 years later? Anyway, the Outlaws entered TNA. Immediately driven away from BG James and the rest of the Live Crew. Everyone here knows that James were technically partners of the previous company, so that's the whole thing. Where was James and Lucas live? I know it's not fair to hold like promo packages and hype videos and stuff to today's standards, but I don't think I'm being unfair when I say that the promo videos on this show are mostly really bad. Like there's a whole lack of narration, there's music cues, the things they choose to play, and read on a loop in these videos, it feels like almost an editing error. Like this particular video, hyping up Killings versus Outlaw, is just so good montage, and the 3 Live Crew kind of best of montage, it doesn't have a clear ending, kind of like the finish, bam, soundbite or sound cue. It just keeps going until it fades out. Like there had to have been a better way to wrap that tag show. Starting out with some fundamentals with the headlock, the tackle drop down. Truth is very fast here. They mentioned on commentary that Outlaw has been wrestling for 13 years up to this point. I'm like, that still doesn't seem like a high enough number. A hip toss attempt goes awry. Outlaw recovers with a blatant low glove. Outlaw dazed on the apron. Truth goes with a kick, but Outlaw drops to the floor and Truth crosses himself. Things go to the outside. The fans hold up a steel chair. Outlaw goes to use it, but the Truth counters. Can they do that? Outlaw does some dance in the corner before he attempts a flying nothing. Truth puts the feet up. Truth goes for his axe kick but misses. Outlaw hits the finisher in response. Gunn very visibly calls the next spot to his opponent. Truth counters and rolls up the Outlaw. Very obviously a shoulder up, but the referee counts it through regardless. Killings wins, but Outlaw immediately jumps straight with the referee is completely ineffective. Then comes BG James, who takes the steel chair from the Outlaw's hands. We get a standoff and a big old New Age Outlaws chant from the fans. Outlaw turns his back and dares BG to swing. He hesitates, but Conan comes in and attacks the Outlaw instead. We get a small confrontation with James and Conan, but it all seems to be good. I give it 1.5 stars out of 5 here. I mean, it's a competent match. Well done enough, but it's just a by the numbers, the TV matchup here. And no suspense, no drama in this. The story is all what happens afterward, and there is more of the story later in the show than we get to. TNA top moment number 4, Raven debuts in January of 2003. We go backstage with the franchise interviews Team Canada. Bobby Roode, he's Bobby this week, by the way, talks trash to Lance Hoyt and tells him to prepare to be, quote, Canadianized. My God, he stole Shane Douglas' thing right in front of him. That's brilliant. P.D. Williams tells the Naturals their losing streak begins tonight. Are there any concerns with the Naturals' new advisor? Scott D'Amore is concerned, all right. He's concerned about what this guy's going to do to Lance Hoyt or the Naturals. Scott compares himself to the great generals like Stalin, Hitler, Mussolini, and says he's not concerned about the Naturals' mystery man. Yeah. Our next matchup is for the NWA World Tag Team Championship as Eric Young and Stephen Williams of Team Canada challenge the Naturals. That's Chase Stevens and Andy Douglas. This matchup came about when Team Canada beat the Natural Band a few weeks ago in Impact, taking advantage of their slump to earn the title on its anniversary. Early on, Stevens and EY trade some blows and sent Eric timbering. I love Steve Williams' smoothness in the ring, whether he's giving offense or he's taking it. Young tries to save his partner from natural disaster, but it ends up with him getting the reverse DDT on Petey. Young with a leapfrog appeared to tweak his leg, but that move does not last long. A1 and Scott D'Amore on the outside, allowing Team Canada to take over on Stevens. Even more chicanery on the outside as Stevens just gets the hell beat out of him all the time. A1 grabbing Chase's leg, and Andy Douglas has had enough. Stevens finally breaks away, tagging a fresh Douglas. Today calls it a hot tag, which I think it's the first time I've ever noticed saying that. And I don't know how to feel about that because I feel hot tag is more kind of an insider term on the level of saying babyface or heel, and you don't necessarily say those. You know, on the matchup, I felt, hot tag, a little too insider. Williams is a sharpshooter. Chase tries to grab him out of it. The powerbomb is powered and Petey finds himself on Steven's shoulders, leading to a double team attempt. The natural disaster for Petey Live with the pin is broken up. A1 hits Fellows with the hockey stick. There's chaos on the apron. Suddenly, in comes Jimmy Hart. The spiritual advisor to the Nationals revealed, and the cameras almost miss him. He tosses the megaphone into the ring. Chase gets Petey with it, a cover, and the win. Natural misses. 3 stars out of 5. This is an example of something where we see a couple of times where it's a very formulaic match, but it's a formula done very well. I like Chase Stevens selling this. I think that the work of Team Canada is really solid here. Jimmy Hart being revealed as
What do you need?
mystery advisor.
The Emperor. Carry on.
I don't know how to feel about it.
Welcome
I
to...
always thought that Jimmy Hart was
Yes, actually, I'm quite fond of collecting all, but one vintage continues to elude me. Say, that gives me an... All I know about them is that they're found in the many fort ruins scattered. Well, apparently the wine is so rare because it was only made in one tiny batch. Besides tasting incredible, the magic with the vintner made it special for the Legion soldiers posted at the forts. It was perfect. There's a fresh... Suit you? Keep looking for that wine. Farewell.
Keep looking at that one.
Which does not seem true. Waltman says he's known for hanging out with the split, hanging with his homies, but tonight he will be there.
How do you do?
What's new with you?
I saw Mudcrab a couple of days ago. Ugly little animals.
I can't stand the sight of those creatures.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Joe, who takes on Sanjay Dutt here. This will affect the current ROH champion. He's no longer the world champion. Back when the relationship between the two companies were a lot stronger, but I will say I think that right off the bat, just
Hail, good citizen. How can I be of service?
Why the fans should care? He goes, I've watched the TVs, I've watched the matches, I've been watching this guy for years, and I'm so excited to call his matches. That is the great level of excitement that you want to see in your announce team. That helps just hype up the viewers as well. A lot of strikes to start things off by Joe. Sanjay trying to use his quickness, but Joe catching him with a vicious...
It's you! The hero of Kavash! This is truly an honor.
Sanjay is able to hit Joe with a big dive to the outside. You know, there have been at least 2 opportunities so far for Joe to simply nope Sanjay, and he hasn't yet. Very surprising. Dutt fires back, hits a 450, still not enough. Fighting up on the turnbuckle, Joe catching Dutt with the muscle buster, followed by the rear naked choke. Dutt taps, and Joe wins handily. Don West says he finally understands what all the hub is about. I give it 2.5 stars out of 5. I was totally expecting a 1-minute squash job by Joe, where he just wiped the floor with Sanjay, and that be it. But I think this match went a long way in making Sanjay look like a lot more than a lamb being led to slaughter. Like, he got a lot of good spots in, and Joe took them all and still looked incredible. That combination of, like, the speed and the agility with his size. I mean, Joe truly was an anomaly at this point in his career, and I think that the way they went about treating his debut was very well done. This is the start of a very lengthy relationship with Joe and TNA, with a lot of highs and some head-scratching lows as well. But this is the start of a lengthy win streak for Joe. He would not lose this company until December of the following year was Kurt Angle debuted. We heard from Raven backstage.
Yes.
If you've been good, way shrines of Dubella may bless your personality.
Go on.
I've been hearing disturbing tales about Oblivion gates opening all across Cerato. I hope it's just wild talk.
Seriously?
Absolutely.
Farewell.
He is a human cancer. His opponents are not twisted or amoral enough to kill him.
Hail, good citizen. How can I be of service?
Become the NWA World Champion. What a hell of a promo. Up next, more Team Canada goodness as Bobby Roode takes on Lance Point, who's coming out wearing a custom Frankfurt Galaxy jersey, but why? I was so confused when I saw that because I'm like, did he play for NFL Europe? And I looked it up, I'm like, No, I know he played football for, his university in Texas, but to my knowledge, he never went pro, never went to the developmental league. He's just a big fan of the Frankfurt Galaxy, I guess. Cool. Root is not intimidated by Hoyt's size, but Blanche is a much stronger shover. The more with a well-timed distraction on the outside allows Root to knock Hoyt into the barricade. Scott is a constant problem in this matchup, and that's the entire story. Every time Hoyt gets in the full head of steam, DeMore will get involved. He'll grab the ankle, he'll get on the apron, distract the referee. It's just non-stop. Long story short, DeMore with another distraction, allowing Root to clog Hoyt from behind the lariat. Root with the cover and the win. After the bell, Scott says school is still in session for Lance. He sticks Root on it, and the beating continues. DeMore removes his glasses, his watch, and his jersey. He goes up top, hits a picture-perfect moonsault, only there's nobody home. Hoyt finally gets his hands on Scott after nearly pantsing him, hits the big choke slam and the moonsault. Trainers, EMTs, and referees down. DeMore is stretchered out as West and Tanay make a bunch of bad jokes on commentary, but dude, the guy just did a moonsault. Fuck you. I give it 2.5 stars out of 5. Now, I will say, had the match just ended with cheat to win, Team Canada to lead, and that's the end of the segment, it would have been a much lower rating. But looking at the entirety of the segment where Hoyt gets his revenge against the loudmouth, obnoxious, evil Kaiser, who's been a pain in the ass all night, and God knows how long before that, DeMore finally getting his comeuppance in a big way. Fans go home happy. We look at that whole segment, and that the classic formula done really well, like I talked about earlier. So that brings the overall rating of this segment up a bit. It's a fine match, and Hoyt still looks good in the eyes of the fans, despite losing. Top TNA moment number 2, Jeff Hardy's debut in the company in June of 2004. We get another recap package that just recycles a lot of the same footage we saw in an earlier recap package because the stories happen to overlap. Anyway, America's Most Wanted has hit a slump lately, and they're going up against the other 2 members of the Live crew who are having some aforementioned problems of their own. Conan's off to a hot start, throws his shoe at both Harris and Storm with pinpoint precision, but seeing Conan not sell the stomp so he gets his shoe back on. We want outlaw chants when James is tagged in, and BG walks right into a James Storm super kick. Knock, knock, who's there? Chris Harris jumps off the second rope, but James cuts him off. BG fights back. We get some accidental collision between the Wildcat and the Cowboy. In comes the Outlaw, who immediately throws hands at K-Dog. BG all by himself and is laid out with a double team attack for AMW to pick up a much-needed win. I love Outlaw's shirt here. First of all, it's weird that Billy Gunn is referencing 9 Inch Nails. I never would have pegged him as a 9 Inch Nails fan in 100 years. But also, that whole phrase on the shirt, not only the 9 Inch Nails logo, but also the more words at the bottom, it's a very weird shirt. So now the roadie doesn't trust Conan. K-Dog puts the fist out, but James leaves the ring. Who's to get a side with? He turns around and walks out on his own. I give it 1.5 stars out of 5. Not the best outing for AMW here, but it served a dual purpose because they get their win back, they get some momentum, and Through Live Crew continue their descent into the storyline they have going on. So it's more of overlapping storylines here. It works, but again, I'm so related with the moment of the show itself. I have too much similar footage in them. It feels like and remember one that came down, Felix never walked in. What else could the possibly be? I remember vividly seeing that clip online, watching it on repeat in my college dorm room, thinking this is the most incredible wrestling move I have ever seen, I ever will see. Nothing is going to top the absolute insanity needed to pull off that move there. You could probably say it's one of the top moments in TNA history today, not just 3 years later, but 20 plus years. It is just that good. Up next, a 3-way dance for the X Division Championship as Christopher Daniels defends against Michael Shane, who's accompanied by Tracy, and Chris Sabin, accompanied by Trinity and what's left of her outfit. At Hard Justice, Tracy betrayed Chris Sabin, Michael Shane betrayed Trinity, and the two joined forces. Trinity is now offering to help Sabin out for their mutual quest for revenge, but Sabin makes it clear it's just business. Also, Christopher Daniels is there, and he's the champion. Some fast action to start things off. Nice move early where a spot between Shane and Sabin turns into a move against Daniels. Daniels gets Chris in the Koji clutch, but Shane with a top rope dive onto them to break it up. We have Shane and Saban working for a while. We've had a shot of Daniels in the foreground for ages. Saban goes to dive onto him, but Daniels catches him with the knee. Love that. After a bit of misdirection, Saban is able to kick Daniels and DDT Shane simultaneously, kind of an alternate version of that opening spot we saw. Saban ducking a line from Michael Shane, goes right on to dive outside onto the champ. Tracy gets involved. That causes Trinity to come in after her. They get into a fight, and I cannot believe there are wardrobe malfunctions here. Saban saves Trinity from a kick-in, goes to hit the cradle shock on Shane, but Daniels holds Trinity hostage, and Saban's like, cool, and drops his rival to eliminate him. Anyway, I love the look on Daniels' face when that happens. He's like, cool, and his Angels wins on Trinity. Some intense back and forth as we get down to the wire. Somehow Saban kicks out of the BME. A great springboard DDT by Saban, but Daniels kicks out. A bit later, Saban wants to bounce at the top rope, but Daniels crotches him, hits the Angels' wings, and covers to win and retain the belt. I give it 4 stars out of 5. You know, Christopher Daniels is definitely the third wheel in this program. This was clearly made to artificially extend the Michael Shane Chris Saban feud, and Daniels is just there at times. But be that as it may, when the bell rings, these three work really well together. They have a great chemistry. They feel really at home wrestling each other. And I think that seeing, Tracy and Trinity, the way they got involved, just to help build that story as well, really well done. I think it's a great showcase of what the X Division, like the best of the X Division, without having to rely on like a gimmick or a big structure they have to fall off of. Shane Douglas interviews Monty Brown. What is his mental preparation after seeing his ally, Jeff Jarrett, let out in handcuffs? Brown says what happened to Jarrett has nothing to do with the alpha male. He says he's going up against 4 omega males, 5 if you count Abyss twice. Like what? He runs through all of his opponents and says that they'll all feel the pound, period. God bless him, little promo. It is such a shame that when he went to WWE, he became Marcus Corbin. That whole thing just whiffed. When he had to leave, take care of family issue. That was unfortunate. But man, what a missed opportunity. Monty Brown. You look at this guy. How is he not a star with his company? How is he graphic? It's a King of the Mountain match for the NWA World Heavyweight Championship as AJ Styles defends against Monty Brown, Abyss, Raven, get an up in the tail tape though with Raven in place of Jarrett. Oh man, look at this. I never thought I'd see someone in a match like this small and Walton really the world champion. AJ beat Jarrett at Hard Justice to regain the world title, thanks in part to guest referee Tito Ortiz. Now, Raven had been with the company at this point for a couple of years. He actually famously debuted like 2 days after his WWE contract expired, so it was a big deal for TNA at that point. His whole angle was he was there to fulfill his destiny of becoming the NWA World Champion. He did get a title match with Jeff Jarrett a year prior to this, but that match was famous for being very bad, ending with Jarrett retaining, leaving a bad taste in a lot of fans' mouths. So his inclusion in this match is kind of a shocker considering all the things that led up to it. Because a few weeks ago, Raven was demanding he be put in the match as the wild card entrant, and to prove his point, he actually assaulted Larry Zbyszko, who was a member of the championship committee. Dusty suspends him for it, but Raven says he quits. He almost runs over a cameraman on his way out, in fact. So, why is he the replacement, though? That sticks in my craw here, because, okay, we're taking out the guy who assaulted a fan, and we're going to replace him with the guy who assaulted personnel members. And, oh, by the way, he's already suspended / quit, so we're going to bring him back in here. That's just weird logic to me. I get why he was put back in there. On one level, I understand, but I also don't, because why would Larry Zbyszko bring him back after what he did to him? It's just weird. Jeremy Borash makes the introductions here alongside Larry Zbyszko, who will hold the belt for the match. JP breaking down the rules. Pinfalls count anywhere. If you're pinned, you're put in the penalty box for 2 minutes. If you pin or submit someone, you become eligible to hang the title belt above the ring, which makes you look now. Love these cool dynamic placements with the going intros. Waltman's on the penalty box cage. AJ's on the ladder. Waltman gets things started quickly with a dive onto Raven. Styles with a Hurricane Rod on Abyss. Monty hits Raven with a pounce within seconds to pin him. That makes him the first man eligible to win the belt, and Raven sits in the boo-boo corner for 2 minutes. Raven enters the match well before the count, but oh well. Brown with a powerbomb on Waltman with the kid in the box. Styles is getting knocked around like a ragdoll all match up here. The this part where Styles takes a face for a turnbuckle, then the pounce, Raven hits him on the floor, and now we have two guys in the box. Raven fucking a trash can into Abyss's face, amazing. He's on fire here. We see AJ and Walton starting to form an alliance of sorts, but all of them in the cage. We get all 6 men back in the ring, and only for a few minutes after this, and Styles crash on Raven, but Abyss breaks in the cover. Walton hits Abyss repeatedly with a chair, gets it on the table on the outside, and convinces AJ to hit the spiral tap off the top through the table. AJ pins him, and the champ is finally eligible. He's the first to grab the belt. He goes at the ladder, but only drops the belt. But look at good guy Waltman offering to help him. What a great friend. Psych, betrayal, and my goodness, what an X factor from the ladder. Waltman with a pin of his own. Raven brings out a staple gun and gets Shawn in the head with it. Waltman later giving him a big old receipt. Don West saying he performed a vasectomy. Waltman doing it to Abyss as well. Styles gets out of the box and chases Waltman up the ladder. Abyss tips it over. We get quite a spill for AJ. The camera misses. Abyss has the belt, but Monty Brown comes back, pouncing him off the ladder and into a table. Raven grounds the DDT, grabs the belt, climbs the top of the ladder, hangs the belt up, and becomes the new NWA World Champion. Destiny fulfilled. I give the match 4.5 stars out of 5. I know this match is probably an exception to the rule. I'm sure there are other Kingdom Out matches that are silly and not great. And yes, the rules, when you first hear them, are a bit convoluted. But once you see it in action, it actually makes a lot of sense. And I think with this particular matchup, everything clicks. Like, this is an eclectic group of guys. You wonder going into it, how is it all going to work? But it does. Like, there's a great chaos from bell to bell. The timing of people in the penalty boxes just works. I really feel it takes away from anything. In many cases, I think it adds. It adds to the match. It lets you focus on some more important, salient points. And so I think it just worked. It was a very fun matchup. And it's just really cool. I think a correct person won. Raven winning the belt, I thought was a great moment. For people who were fans of his throughout that time period, people like me who were kids and saw him for the first time, and like maybe it was ECW or WCW or WWF. Like, wow, this guy is really cool and different and interesting. And what a great example of somebody who is all about character evolution and psychology and a great promo. Like, this is somebody who I think was so ahead of his time in many ways. Just a brilliant mind for wrestling, and that came through a really dynamic and captivating character. And so fans wanted to see him get his due for a long time. And so to see him get his due here when you knew he wasn't going to get it in WCW or in WWE, it was a really cool moment to see him finally get that moment for the first time since he was an ECW champion. For him to be a world champion here, really cool. An incredible moment after the show wraps up, though. We go right to this TNA promo package, and the first words we hear are Jeff Jarrett saying,
"Some said I couldn't make it."
Well, yeah, Jeff, you definitely didn't make it this time. My grade for TNA Slammiversary 2005 is a B. Not a perfect show, but overall a very enjoyable pay-per-view. It's a great time capsule of what TNA is all about this time. Like, if you're like me and are kind of like not fully familiar, you're kind of lapsed on the TNA knowledge this time, this show is a great way to catch up on it. Like I said, they do a great job just breaking down every plot point, largely because they didn't have TV to explain it for you lately. So that is kind of a silver lining with that. I think it's so cool to see like a lot of the young up-and-comers working with like the legends. A lot of future legends on this show. Like, there's more than a dozen people you'll see on this show who are still looking for wrestling at this like very high national level, whether as a performer or as a producer or a matchmaker. Like, to this day, they're still involved. So like the stuff you're seeing now, today's wrestling, like a lot of that style got its start and got its biggest influence during this time. TNA, Ring of Honor, this was the beginning of all that. And so it's really cool to go back and see just like how TNA, how much they've changed since then, and just how much wrestling has evolved since then as well. Because there's some great stuff on here, and in many respects, a lot of the styles in wrestling just keep getting up and elevated more and more, and you're seeing that evolution take place right before your eyes in the show. But what did you think about Slammiversary? Let me know in the comment section below. Stay tuned as we continue on with this unofficially named TNA month. Team Junior A? I don't know. You come up with a better one. But we're going to continue on with our programming this month. Next week, we're looking at the weeks from now, we go back to the year 2005 for the company's biggest show of the year, Bound for Glory. But until then, I'm Brian Zane, and I'll see you next time.
There are plenty of reasons to mock World Championship Wrestling. Stupid gimmicks, asinine booking decisions, intelligence-insulting storylines. You name it, the lads and lasses, but mostly lads in Atlanta, Georgia, did it. But for all its faults, there is no denying that WCW could play host to some of the finest professional wrestling matches, not just in the United States, but anywhere in the world. Because for all the boneheaded backstage blunders that helped contribute to its demise, while WCW was alive and kicking, they were often the place to see the best wrestlers go at it. So why not celebrate that, rather than, say, making more of the same tired Vince Russo jokes, bro? Now, for this here video, I should stress that we are not ranking these bad boys in order. Also, we've tried where possible to limit the number of times the same match crops up. So yes, we do know that Sting and Vader had banger after banger against one another, but for variety's sake, we are not going to be including every match they had together. And as a little Michael Hayes, P.S., get it, to add, we are classing WCW as everything that came after Jim Crockett sold his promotion to Ted Turner in the fall of 1988. With all that now being said, it's time to sit back, get your VHS tapes out the loft, pop a top on a can of Surge and put your big boy away while watching some straight hot fire from the place where the big boys played. I'm Adam Pacitti from Cultaholic Wrestling, and these are 50 WCW matches everyone should watch at least once. Join us! Number 50, Vader vs. Ric Flair at Starrcade 1993. The main event of the 10th anniversary of Starrcade offered up a unique clash of styles and personalities. The show was supposed to be headlined by Vader defending his World Heavyweight title against Sid Vicious, but the master and ruler of the world got a bit scissor-happy during a tour of the UK and was let go. It's fair to say that Nature Boy was a serious upgrade, and Flair putting his career on the line in his pursuit of his 11th title triumph only added to the drama. The Charlotte, North Carolina crowd was solidly behind the hometown hero, who had a daunting task in trying to withstand the ferocious, relentless onslaught of the champ. Indeed, Vader spent much of the contest pummeling the challenger, who just about managed to weather the storm, avoiding a moonsault and a top rope diving headbutt from Vader's manager Harley Race before hitting a last gasp chop block and just barely getting the super heavyweight shoulders down for a 3 count. It was the end of a long, physical and emotional match that more than deserved top billing at
Good to see you.
What's
going on with you?
They
say
syndicates of wizards have let a boy out of the goods in the land of the Ultima.
The Ultima have powerful wizards.
It
could be a dangerous situation.
The opposite. The sole bright spots on a rather dismal pay-per-view was a singles match between Lord Stephen Freeville and the Belfast Bruiser, more commonly known as Fit Finlay. The two old foes were renowned for their physicality, but both men seemed to turn things up several notches here, producing a stiff scrap that more closely resembled a UFC fight than a pro wrestling match from mid-90s WCW. For over 15 minutes, the Englishman and the Irishman used their hands, feet, elbows, knees, and other instruments of destruction to beat the ever-loving piss out of one another. The shots were so hard that Regal ended up getting busted open hard way, a big no-no in the company at the time, before the match mercifully ended via disqualification when Earl Robert Eaton and Squire David Taylor ran to the aid of his lordship. Quite unlike anything seen in a mainstream American promotion at the time, the match still holds up and utterly brutal to this day. Number 48, Randy Savage versus Diamond Dallas Page at the Great American Bash 1997. One of WCW's top feuds of 1997 was Randy Savage versus Diamond Dallas Page, a personal grudge which resulted in 3 ultra-heated pay-per-view singles meetings between the pair. The best of the bunch is probably the one in the middle, a Falls Count Anywhere affair that was picked to close the show. The match got off to a hot start as DDP ambushed his foe from behind and the pace never let up, though Dallas himself was slowed down due to injured ribs, which played nicely into the story of the bout. After a walk through the crowd, the Macho Man took over, piled rogue WCW referee Mickey J, obviously, threw replacement referee Mr. Curtis out of the ring, and looked to have things in control. But a trip to a picnic area, no really, turned the tide for Page as they continued to brawl into the ring. In the end, the New World Order numbers game made the difference, with Scott Hall's interference allowing an exhausted Savage to hit the top rope elbow drop and just barely escape with the W. Number 47, Barry Windham and Flying Brian versus Ricky Steamboat and Shane Douglas at Starrcade 1992. WCW during the Bill Watts-led days was a lot different to the product Eric Bischoff and his team helped shape just a couple of years later. The emphasis was on the sport part of the sports entertainment package, with a talented roster of exceptional athletes typically engaging in long matches where wrestling was the story. One of the best from this period was the tag team title match from Starrcade 92, with Steamboat and Douglas defending against Pillman and Windham. Considering all four are great workers and they're given 20 minutes to play with, you probably expect it to be good, but what the quartet produce manages to be even better than you imagined going in. It's just classic old-school tag team wrestling, with heels against baby faces and everyone playing their parts perfectly, with the Dragons selling and comebacks in particular simply on another level. And if you don't want to see Steamboat and Douglas taking a kicking before making hot moves and comebacks, well, I don't think we can be friends, I'm afraid. Number 46, Sikope, Damien and Lapaka versus Hector Garza, Super Callo, and Juventud Guerrera on Nitro. One of the highlights of WCW during the Monday Night Wars was the influx of luchadors from Mexico. Obviously, you had the likes of Mysterio and Psychosis standing out from the pack, but there was a whole supporting cast of high-flying stars that deserve a ton of credit for bringing plenty of excitement to WCW programming. There were seemingly hundreds of singles, tag, six-man, and even eight-man tag matches to savor, but if you want a good encapsulation of what made the division so great, look no further than this effort from the May 26, 1997 edition of Nitro. The first match of the broadcast, following a Hulk Hogan promo, the second with setting the tone of the second in the 6 minutes and 26 seconds of anarchy. It is a total blockbuster and doesn't try and convince you otherwise, with big moves coming thick and fast, including an incredible series of dives to the outside, one of which ends up in the front row. The pro wrestling equivalent of going at 6 challenge your heart rate to stay steady while watching this human car crash unfold. Number 45, Jushin Liger versus Brian Pillman at Super Brawl 2. The second Super Brawl had several good matches: Rude versus Steamboat, Sting versus Luger, and a pair of tags featuring members of the Dangerous Alliance, but none could quite reach the standard set by the two men in the show's opener. Jushin Liger made his way across the Pacific Ocean to defend his WWE. A beautiful blend of crisp fan wrestling and impactful home time. Pillman and Luger had tremendous chemistry previous meeting in Japan and complemented each other perfectly. It was 100 miles per hour all the way through.
Yeah,
They
you.
did things smartly.
You need something
On the ground
special?
before taking it.
Check out my wares. You won't find...
We hadn't really seen anything quite like this before. Responded
Have a look around.
enthusiastically.
You won't find better prices in all Tamriel.
An incredible somersault plancher to the floor. It may seem pretty ordinary by today's standards, but that move and other things like springboards and moonsaults during a reckless closing stretch. The prototypical hot opener, it still thrills over 3 decades later. Number 44, Eddie Guerrero versus Chris Jericho at Fall Brawl 1997. Sticking with the line.
Hey, you're the... Walk always in the shadow of Sithis.
Two of the very best of the bunch did just that in the curtain raiser of Fall Brawl 97. Guerrero and Jericho had both been somewhat bland babyfaces during their WCW careers to this point, and previous matches between the two had failed to ignite. With Eddie now embracing his inner heel, this effort was a lot more heated, starting a little slower on the mat, but exploding into life. Guerrero was able to get on top of wear Jericho down with a series of painful submissions before the two men began trading.
Wee!
This is a great back-and-forth match between two legends relatively early in their careers. Both men wrestled like they felt they had something to prove, and I think it's fair to say they proved it on this night. Number 43, The Great Muta and Dick Slater versus Ric Flair and Sting at Clash of the Champions 8. Sting and Ric Flair were rivals who brought out the best of each other, but they like as partners. Well, this is very good on the evidence of the main event of the 8th Clash of Champions, aka Fall Brawl. Any disappointment over Dick Slater taking the place of Terry Funk is eradicated early on, as Sting and Muta get things off to a hot start. But really, you can't go wrong with any combination here, and Slater, who considered Terry Funk his hero and mentor, does a very good impression of the Funker with his wild bumping, selling, and facial expressions. Go nuts for everything Flair and Sting do, and they get plenty of time
A pleasure to speak
before
with
the
you.
heels isolate the Nature Boy.
I'm sorry.
Sting's turn to take a beating
Have
before
you
Slick
been
Rick comes
seeing
in to clean house, and everything starts breaking down as the ref is thrown, Sting is blinded by yellow mist, and Flair is busted open.
Hi
by
there.
Dick's
Greetings.
armor.
I see you've been keeping.
Chaos, Funk shows up
We
and puts
are a
back
brotherhood,
over
a
Flair's head,
family.
drawing the disqualification.
What affects one of us affects us. I would like you to speak with Modrin Orient. He will assign you any duties that are currently pending. Good luck to you. For now, Modrin Orient will be handling your duty assignments. Please speak with him. Be seeing you. Greetings. For now, Modrin Orient will be handling. Just do your job.
Beach Blast 1992. Ravishing Rick and the Dragon didn't exactly have a
What do you
template
want?
to follow,
I suppose you've come
to
looking for
study
duties,
who
huh?
scored the most decisions within a
Duties for
half-hour
you.
period.
Fine.
Their
I'll...
basic psychology and
He's one of your Fighters Guild brothers, but he's defaulted on a contract. We can't allow that.
7.5 to 10 minutes.
He didn't finish out a contract on Skin Guard. Suppose I shouldn't be surprised. Yes, Maglia. Don't just stand there.
But the former NWA heavyweight champion was so out of it that Rude was able to make things 3-1 anyway. The rest of the match saw the Dragon pull back fall after fall as he improbably made it 4-3 with 30 seconds to go. Frantic 30 minutes as Rude and Steamboat set the benchmark for all Iron matches that followed. Number 41, the Steiner Brothers versus Hiroshi Hase and Masahiro Chono at Clash of the Champions 15. WCW's working relationship with New Japan resulted in some stupendous matches both stateside and in the land of the rising sun.
You get any closer, and I'll turn your bones to ash. I have no time for you. I have no time for your pathetic attempts at small talk. Now walk away.
Mixing up with their Japanese counterparts such as Hiroshi Hase and a green but great Masahiro Chono. Their WGP Tag Team title meeting at the 15th Clash of the Champions was a smash mouth as smash mouth gets, with Chono kicking Rick in the noggin so hard during an early exchange that it actually broke his headgear. As well as early strikes, there is plenty of great teamwork, no shortage of high-impact slams and suplexes, and finally the match-winning Frankensteiner. At a fraction over 8 minutes, this is a tight all-action affair that has the crowd laughing up every
What is it, brother?
Exchange. The only downside
Default?
is suffering a
I suppose so.
during the
I'm not paid enough to do the job. I was supposed to fight.
the hardliners.
That was my job.
Skilled Japanese
They said it was in Fall Rock Cave. You ever been in there? Didn't they? If you care that much, you go find it. The contract's yours. It's not worth it for what the guild is paying. I've got a family to think about.
In full flow by late 1996, as the likes of Malenko and Mysterio
I'm married.
left a division must-see.
I saw.
Ultimo Dragon joined the company not too long
Whatever.
after Mysterio had made his own debut, losing to Ray in the Cruiserweight title opener at Hog Wild. Mysterio got him again a couple of days later on Nitro, so by the time he met at World War III, Ultimo was chomping at the bit to get one back for himself. By this point, Ray had lost the Cruiserweight title, but Dragon possessed the J Crown of titles, which were up for grabs here. A customarily great opener, the two masked men put on one hell of a show that had great technical wrestling, plenty of flying, and some really big moves. Dragon controlled the bulk of the contest, trying in vain to keep his smaller opponent from rallying with some brutal offense. Mysterio got some offense of his own in, not a lot though, but he made it all count and created enough doubt before Ultimo retained. Number 39, Chris Benoit versus Kevin Sullivan at the Great American Bash 1996. Between Kevin Sullivan and Chris Benoit was ultra personal and at times blurred the lines between fantasy and reality. Watching them collide at the 96 Great American Bash, it took sure a few live rounds weren't being thrown. The Crippler and the Taskmaster went hell for leather right from the off, meeting each other in the entrance aisle and laying in heavy shots before the opening television set. Much of this Falls Count Anywhere scrap took place inside the ring, as they preferred to fight through the stands and into the men's bathroom, of all places, where Sullivan slammed the door right on Benoit's head. They eventually brought their way back to the ring, where Benoit used the table propped up on the top turnbuckle as a launching pad for his match-winning superplex. There wasn't a whole lot to this match besides them walloping each other, but sometimes that's what it needs, isn't it? Genuinely, it's odd behind the scenes due to personal reasons. Both men kept it professional in front of the cameras and really gave viewers a taste of their genuine animosity. Extra points for the post-match angle with Arn Anderson too. Number 38, the Midnight Express versus the Southern Boys of the Great American Bash 1990. The Midnight Express, any iteration really, are one of the greatest professional wrestling tag teams of all time. No doubt be more of their matches on this here list had most of their best work not occurred before JCP was sold to Turner. As it is, trust me when I say that this one Midnight match against the Southern Boys is as good as any other. In fact, I would go as far as to say it's one of the best tag matches to take place on American soil, ever. Ethan Lane, Smothers and Armstrong put on an 18-minute masterclass at the 1990 Bash with the tag championships on the line. Southern Doubles Wrestling 101 by 4 consummate pros with added redneck kung fu, the match ebbed and flowed wonderfully, building and building to a crescendo. Really, you can only sit and marvel at the timing of the sequences, as the Express were clearly untouchable at this point when it came to the bell-to-bell stuff, and the fired-up Southern Boys were the perfect opponents for them. Credit also for managing to turn the crowd around, because they were all about cheering the supposed heels before Eaton, Lane and Cornette worked their magic. Number 37, Ric Flair versus Hulk Hogan at the Beach 1994. Say what you want to say, Hogan, and if you're a regular viewer, you'll know that I need no encouragement on that front, but the man was a major superstar. After leaving WWE in the summer of 1993, the Hulkster was lured over to the competition, who subsequently built the promotion around him. Their marquee signing was unveiled amid much fanfare, and his first match was booked against WCW World Heavyweight Champion Ric Flair in the main event of the 1994 Bash at the Beach. Hogan, who brought Shaquille O'Neal and Mr. T along for some added star power, would have probably been booed out of a WCW ring just a few years earlier. But this was a different, decidedly more mainstream and family-friendly WCW, and the man was over. For WCW, this particular match on pay-per-view was a big boon, since WWE had failed to do it when they had both men under contract just a couple of years prior. The match just felt big time, and as far as the actual action was concerned, lived up to its name. But this Flair stuff, and Hogan did Hogan stuff before the inevitable leg drop finish. And off to the races, WCW went, brother! Number 36, Dustin Rhodes versus Vader at Clash of the Champions 29. Hulk Hogan's influence was certainly being felt by the time the 29th Clash of the Champions special aired in November of 1994. Terrible Terry's pals, Ed Leslie, John Tenta, Hacksaw Jim Duggan and the Honky Tonk Man were all over the show, with Hogan headlining and a handicap match refereed by Mr. T, which he won, naturally. The promotion may have been growing increasingly cartoony, but you could always count on Big Van Vader to bring you back to reality with just a few well-placed bearpaws to the face. Dustin Rhodes may have long ago cemented his status as one of the best workers of his generation, but many fans didn't quite accept Dusty's kid at the level he was being pushed at until his performance here. Vader was at his big bully best, smacking the natural around while trash-talking and even driving Dustin up so that he quickly gave as good as he got. Despite that flurry, Vader typically came back strong, but the Grand Cobra managed to survive 2 Vader bombs and mount another comeback, including an incredible second rope DDT. He didn't manage the upset, but by withstanding the onslaught and fighting back, he proved to everyone watching that he was the real deal, if you will. Sting versus Cactus Jack at Beach Blast 1992. The feeling when Mick Foley left WCW in 1994 was that his tenure in the Turner Bash company had a slight disappointment. But when you look back at his work as Cactus Jack during the early 90s, you have to say that Foley's WCW career was chock full of highlights. Chief among them is this excellent Falls Count Anywhere match with Sting from Beach Blast 92. Announcer Jim Ross said it best as Cactus Jack made his entrance, noting that the masochist was more than happy to put his body on the line in order to accomplish his goal. And it only took Foley a matter of seconds to endure his first bone-jarring bump of the match as Sting gave him a back body drop off the mat. That set the tone for what was to follow, a wild and woolly and highly inventive brawl that saw both men put their bodies on the line. This is the face team WCW championship wasn't up for grabs, needed to establish his tough-guy credentials, and he walked away with not just a win, but several respects. 34, versus Evan Courageous and Jamie Noble versus the Young Dragons at Starrcade 2000. For all the negatives about Vince Russo, and as has been well documented, there are a great many of them, one of his positive traits as a writer was his enthusiasm when it came to pushing new young talents. 6 of the beneficiaries of that philosophy during his ill-fated WCW tenure were Shannon Moore, Evan Courageous, Jimmy Yang. The sextet, feuded throughout 2000, had had 2 ladder matches. The first, a 3-on-3 affair from the New Blood Rising, called over at Gold Record, was very good. However, this 3-team tussle from Starrcade was simply superior. With a cruiserweight title opportunity the next night on Nitro there for the taking, these fearless high flyers did everything possible to secure it and entertain the fans in the process. Is it a tad sloppy and reckless at times? Sure, but as far as balls to the wall spot, far more creative than this. WWE may have cornered the market on this sort of thing thanks to the exploits of Edge and Christian, the Hardys and the Dudleys, but WCW's Cruiser Truth was on something rather spectacular and gave long-suffering fans something to cheer as the company was circling the brain. Number 33, Psychosis versus Rey Mysterio Jr. at Bash at the Beach 1996. During the Monday Night War, the pattern developed when it came to WCW pay-per-views. Though much of the mid-card might have been uninspired and the top matches were customarily reserved for NWO-based nonsense, the lower portion of the card was home to some of the most incredible, revolutionary wrestling you could see anywhere in the world, courtesy of the Cruiserweight division. On the night where the New World Order was formed, Rey Mysterio and Psychosis tore the house down in a superlative opener. The two were more than well acquainted with one another, having blown minds in Mexico, Japan, and in ECW, but Mysterio was still new to the WCW, having debuted as a 5-month Great American Bash, while Psychosis was making just his second WCW appearance, having put over Tony in a quick match 6 months before. As spectacular as Mysterio was and is, Psychosis was right up there with him and deserves a ton of credit for not only throwing caution to the wind with his fearless dives and splashes, but also for being a rock-solid base for all of Ray Jr.'s sensational maneuvers. Blowing away everything else on the card as far as in-ring action was concerned with their 15-minute barn burner, Mysterio and Psychosis cemented the Luchadors as a must-see attraction. Number 32, Bret Hart versus Chris Benoit on Nitro. On May 23rd, 1999, Owen Hart tragically fell to his death while waiting to perform a special entrance as the Blue Blazer during WWE's Over the Edge pay-per-view. Less than 5 months later, Owen's older brother Bret stood in the middle of the WCW ring in the same building, Kansas City's Kemper Arena, ready to wrestle a match in honor of his younger sibling. The Hitman had specifically requested a match with Benoit to pay tribute to Owen, asking WCW management for 25 minutes as well as no gimmicks or storyline shenanigans to impede proceedings. With local legend and half-family friend Harley Race serving as ring announcer, the two Canadians proceeded to have a slow-burning throwback of a match that more closely resembled an NWA heavyweight title battle from the 70s, rather than the bonkers action fans during the Attitude Era had tuned their attention spans to. It was a masterful match from two masters of their craft, which, thankfully, the fans in attendance reserved their patience and reverence for. Clocking in at 27.5 minutes, the clinic came to a close when Hart tapped Benoit out via the sharpshooter. That said, really, a winner and loser were immaterial in the grand scheme of things. What really mattered was that they had paid tribute to Owen Hart with one of the very best matches in WCW history. Number 31, Ric Flair versus Ricky Steamboat at Chi-Town Rumble 1989. After taking the best part of a year off following his WWE departure, Ricky Steamboat re-emerged in WCW in January of 1989 as the surprise partner of Eddie Gilbert. The two men defeated Ultimate Ric Flair and
Smelly
Freedom
fish,
in
the
a
smelly fish, the
dynamite match on
smelly fish.
WCW television. The Dragon was back. He was coming after the Nature Boy, with their first meeting scheduled for the Chi-Town Rumble a month later. The two men had put on some excellent matches years earlier, though most of those were strictly for the benefit of people lucky enough to be in the arena on the night. Now, with a pay-per-view audience eagerly watching on, Flair and Steamboat got to show the world just what they were capable of in a 5-star main event for the ages. The shortest match in what would develop into a timeless trilogy.
I saw Ugak Gramogak earlier. At least, I think it was her. Perhaps it was her. You're still around. I've told you why I defaulted on the contract. You found it, huh? Good work, I guess. Well, take it back to Orin then. He can pay you on the contract. Tell him what you want about me.
His name in the history books by winning his first and only NWA heavyweight title.
Thanks. I'm not trying to shirk my duty, but it used to be 2 or 3 men would be on this. I like the guild, but I've got a family to whatever.
It's all bollocks, of course, and something that the then WCW World Champion dispelled when he defended his title in the main event of Halloween Havoc 98. It helps that he was in there with DDP, a man known for plotting out his matches to the finest detail, as the two men fought for a frantic 10 minutes, a marathon in comparison to Goldberg's usual squashes. It was hard-hitting, it was intense, and it featured one of the best counter-slash-near falls in history when Dallas reversed a jackhammer attempt into a diamond cutter. The crowd were with them the whole way because both men were really over, and Goldberg just had that special aura you could not manufacture. Those in the MGM brand were probably also happy that they weren't watching a replay of the calamitous Hogan Warrior match from earlier in the night. Yeesh. Props to Page for carrying the load here and making himself and his opponent star. And no props to WCW, who let the show overrun and ensured that the pay-per-view feed cut out the many paying customers who had to cash the main event when the company aired it on night.
Why are you talking to me? Shouldn't you be finding Mac here?
WCW, number 29, Randy Savage versus Ric Flair at the Great American Bash 1995.
So, I assume you've dealt with Mac.
The of Hulk Hogan, the debut of Nitro, and the NWO.
So, I assume you've dealt with Mac. Tell me about why he defaulted. You've got the job. Good. So, what happened in Steamboat?
Rivalry helped generate strong business for WCW on the house show circuits.
He didn't. This doesn't sit well with me. Not well at all. Still, the job got done. Let's hope your friend Magnet has learned. Back for more work, are you? Good. Some of our boys are causing trouble in Layla. Some of your brothers have been getting rowdy at the local tavern. I've got no problem with cutting loose, but I don't like it when we all get bad. You're looking for Relian, Vantus Pelias, and Dubak Broshaw. I haven't had any trouble with them before. I'll be waiting.
Magic just ends up working itself. It might not be on quite the same level as their WrestleMania 8 showdown from 3 years earlier, but this ably demonstrated that the two legends were still more than capable of getting it done in the ring. Woo! Dig it. Number 28, Steve Austin versus Ricky Steamboat at Show Beach 1994.
So
it was
go to
obvious from the off that stunning Steve Austin was loaded with potential. Growing in confidence with each promo, match, and angle, Austin was the sort of up-and-coming star that WCW really should have been preparing to eventually build their company around. They didn't, much to their own detriment, and based on Stunning Steve's Summer of '94 series with Ricky Steamboat, you simply have to wonder, what the hell were they thinking? Austin and the Dragon had worked with each other on countless occasions since '92, so they knew each other inside and out by the time they met with the US title on the line at the 1994 Bash at the Beach. A fiery babyface and a fast-bumping heel is always a winning combination, and there simply weren't many better at those respective roles than Austin and Steamboat. Given a generous 20 minutes to play with, these two tremendous pro wrestlers went out and put on a rip-roaring pro wrestling match that built expertly. Annoyingly, the crowd weren't especially into it for the most part, but you know what I always say, right? Balls to the crowd and balls to you, because this was
What can I do?
Number 27.
There are some folks causing trouble, that's for sure.
At Starcade 1995.
Good day.
Speaking of textbooks, everybody watching Starcade 1995 got an education in professional wrestling thanks to the presence of some of New Japan's best and brightest. And while bouts like Jushin Liger versus Chris Benoit and Alex Wright versus Koji Kanemoto were certainly impressive, they weren't quite on the level of Eddie Guerrero's match with Shinjiro Otani. Again, their familiarity certainly didn't hurt things, as Guerrero knew Otani from his various tours of the Far East, where he primarily wrestled as Black Tiger too. On this occasion, however, he was very much maskless and working as a babyface against the Japanese invader. Not that Jingoism or company affiliation reared their ugly little heads here. This was just about two of the absolute best in their style going out and rocking the house. Stiff strikes, submissions, suplexes, springboards, hurricane ranas. Eddie and Otani threw everything they had at one another and got fans invested in the outcome solely due to the strength of their exceptional work. This sort of match might have been routine in New Japan, but it hadn't really been seen in a WCW ring much at all since Pillman and Liger dropped jaws years earlier, so to say that this was a nice change of pace would be a massive understatement. The Cruiserweight Revolution was imminent. Number 26, the Four Horsemen versus Brian Pillman, Sting and the Steiner Brothers at Wrestle War 1991. Ah, War Games. Sorry, let me do that again. Ah, War Games. Does anyone else get that warm, fuzzy feeling reminiscing on these two ring double cage bloodbaths? Thank the Lord for that. I thought I was a psychopath for a second there. One of the best NWA/WCW innovations, the War Games match was always something to look forward to. Many of them were genuine claret-soaked classics before the gimmick got diluted and they decided to mess with a winning formula towards the end of the 90s. The one at Wrestle War 91 was one of the very best, as the Horseman squad of Flair, Wyndham, Vicious and Zbyszko threw down with the uber babyface squad of Sting, the Steiners and Pillman. It's just non-stop action from bell to bell, with something always going on somewhere. The low roof doesn't hinder either and actually plays into the match, from Pillman using it to transition into moves to Sting pressing Flair up against it. Regrettably, the roof does almost do Flying Brian in as he catches his feet on it going up for Sid's powerbomb, injuring him on the landing and bringing out El Gigante of all people to surrender the match for the good guys in what was reputedly an improvised finish. Still, that doesn't detract from what was a superior War Games and one of WCW's best matches of a fruitful decade. Number 25, Cactus Jack versus Vader at Halloween Havoc 1993. Whether they were ripping off ears on a house show in Germany or ripping it up in a pay-per-view main event, Cactus Jack and Vader always gave fans their money's worth. Embroiled in one of the most punishing rivalries in wrestling, the two men put their bodies through hell in a series of matches that stood in stark contrast to the shifting tone and tenor of WCW programming at the time. Singling out one match from the rest is really tricky, but we've spun the wheel and made a deal with their Texas Deathmatch from Halloween Havoc 1993. The term deathmatch can often seem, just a tad hyperbolic in wrestling, but it actually applies in this case, because watching it, you genuinely worry that somebody, probably Foley, could die. It is just brutal from start to finish, with stiff strikes, sick bumps, and, to be quite frank, one too many unprotected weapon shots. It is a gutsy performance from both, and a borderline uncomfortable viewing experience at times, but just compelling all the same. A stun-gun finish and the match not being for the WCW title, despite the champion winning, is classic WCW, of course. Number 24, Rey Mysterio Jr. versus Dean Malenko at the Great American Bash 1996. There's a good story behind Rey Mysterio Jr.'s WCW debut. The last man who had taken Mexico, Japan, and ECW by storm showed up at the Baltimore Arena unaware that he would be in a championship match on pay-per-view, having assumed that he was booked for a non-televised house show. The rest of the WCW locker room instantly took to mocking the undersized luchador behind his back, but when Rey came through the curtain after his loss to Dean Malenko, the naysayers were giving him a rare standing ovation for his eye-opening performance. Having the Iceman as a dance partner was obviously advantageous to the so-called King of Mystery, but the then 21-year-old deserved the plaudits for a showing that well and truly put him on the map. The match was an exquisite mesh of styles, with Mysterio's flying and Malenko's more mat-based approach providing an intriguing dichotomy. The two would arguably have even better matches further down the line, but for historical importance, and because, it's still well in that upper tier, Mysterio versus Malenko from the 96 Great American Bash deserves your attention. Number 23, Raven versus Diamond Dallas Page versus Chris Benoit at Uncensored 1998. You couldn't pick three more different wrestlers, could you? Well, you probably could, but you have to admit there is a stark contrast here, no? You've got Raven, the extremist with a penchant for weapons-based violence. You've got Diamond Dallas Page, the late starter who worked hard and polarized colleagues by mapping out his matches to the nth detail. And then you've got Chris Benoit, hitting dojo-trained machine who favoured the Japanese strong style. Putting the three of them out there in a no DQ Falls Count Anywhere match for the US title could have been a recipe for disaster, but turned out to be one of the best triple threats you'll likely ever see. I mean, any match that starts with a three-man lockup is going to be good, isn't it? But it's about as scientific as the match gets, mind, as the trio proceed to beat the hell out of each other with weapons, the stage set, and anything else they can get their hands on for the rest of it. Three-ways were a relatively new concept at this point, but Raven, Page and Benoit had no issues coming up with all manner of novel moves and sequences involving all of them. A second-rope diamond cutter onto a table was a suitably badass ending to a chaotic contest. Number 22, Ric Flair versus Lex Luger at Starrcade 1988. A big criticism of Lex Luger was that he never put in a proper amount of effort and failed to live up to his seemingly limitless potential. May be true to a degree, but when he was motivated and in there with the right ability, the results were often spectacular. I mean, Luger had a certified banger with Dan Spivey, for tit's sake. One man who continually brought the best out of the total package was Ric Flair, the two having several tremendous matches over the world title. As the more experienced veteran, not to mention the heel and reigning world champion, Flair naturally led this particular match, helping to pace a pay-per-view main event that was booked to go 30 minutes. And he paced it wonderfully, with both men trading the advantage and playing to their strengths. Rick is the crafty villain, taking shortcuts when he sees them while lighting up Lex with knife-edge chops and trying to work over body parts, while Luger bounces Flair around with slams and other high-impact moves while looking like a Greek god. The finish is bloody great too, as Luger's leg buckles while he has Flair up in the torture rack, with the dirtiest player in the game falling on top and then using the ropes for leverage to retain. Number 21, Blitzkrieg versus Juventud Guerrera at Spring Stampede 1999. WCW Slide was already in motion by the time Spring Stampede 99 rolled around, but there were still positives to be found. The cruiserweights were still good value, of course, including a new masked sensation called Blitzkrieg. He wasn't around for long and decided to quit the business for good after leaving WCW, but he managed to make quite the impression during his short time in the squared circle. Blitzkrieg was at his show-stealing best when going up against Juventud Guerrera in this frenetic curtain raiser. This was just two guys going out there and seizing the moment by showing everyone that though they may not have been given interesting storylines or angles, they are as exciting as anything on television when that bell rings. There are dives and top rope moves aplenty, with fans biting on every 2 counts and spurring them on as they try to one-up each other. Eventually, the juice unleashes something that simply cannot be one-upped: a middle rope booby driver. Follow that. Number 20, the Steiner Brothers versus Sting and Lex Luger at Super Brawl 1. Some all babyface encounters can suffer from a lack of crowd heat due to the fans in the arena not knowing exactly who they're supposed to be cheering for. Not in this match though, oh no. Because when these four studs got together at the first Super Brawl and spent 11 minutes hossing each other about for fun, the 6,000 in Florida's Bayfront Center had no issues cheering them all on wildly. There's no easing into things with these two teams as they go full throttle right away, with Luger throwing Rick around at will before Sting comes in and hits a ludicrous over-the-top rope plancher. When Scotty tags in, things get taken up a notch further as he never needed an excuse to throw or suplex someone around and did so gleefully as the contest romped on. The fans are popping for everything as they continue to empty their arsenals with that perfect and the interference